Welcome to Holdback Podcast. My name is Jessica Hare. I operate Hare Hollow Farm, and we breed boas, balls, and select colubrids.
Hi, I'm Jana King. I operate ASM Royal Tails, and I breed high-end ball pythons.
We want to share our journey navigating herpetoculture and are dedicated to promoting biohazard safety for all species. And we would love you to answer the question, what's in your holdback rack? Welcome to episode 6, Jana.
Welcome. We are almost there. Episode
so
7.
Close. Each
the
day.
Big 7 burnout. I'm doing well. How are you?
I didn't sleep very much. I'm accustomed to a leisurely 10 to 12 every night.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like heaven.
So this is like 6 or 7 is borderline madness.
Oh, 6 or 7 is glorious over here. So you're where I normally am, and I'm where you are.
I know we've switched spots. So I might be the crazy one, and you might be the mean, bitter, realistic one. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen?
Wow, it could get crazy up in here.
Speaking of crazy, I'll save this for a collection update, but just as a teaser, I did get an email from Garrick Jemire, and I might buy a thing from Garrick Jemire.
What? I haven't heard this. Is hot
I know,
take.
hot take. It just happened this morning. And I was like,
oh, I can't wait.
Teaser it, but I won't say what is happening. Jana's not part of Justin's Patreon. We already have established that. But I sent Jana the picture that Justin shared to the Patreon of a...
Wait, does that mean that you broke the Patreon, sanctum?
Oh!
No!
No, I've seen it on Facebook already also.
No, I know. Lots of people do
Yeah.
that. I was just teasing. The sanctum has been broken. Okay, go ahead.
Justin announced that he made the wookie chocolate homozygote and the wookie chocolate homozygote clown. Jana, do you have a hot take?
They're beautiful. I don't have a hot take. They're just whoa. Although not much difference in the clown, which is a wee bit disappointing, but the color is beautiful. We did discuss that they are lilac, right? That's been proven?
Well, it's been proven that spot nose and wookie are lilac, but since spot nose and chocolate are lilac, they must be lilac. So.
Right. Okay. So, a chocolate is a single chocolate is $100, and a single gene wookie is like 8 to 1,000 for males.
1,000. Easy 1,000.
Yeah. So I'm just curious if that's a smart allelic combination to make.
Probably not. I do think it. So, in the single gene form, I can tell them apart. I'm sure most people can, because the Wookiees have the head notch where, the neck connects to the head pattern. Obviously, they will float in certain combos in ways that chocolates do not. But there are some combos I don't think you're going to tell them apart at all. You're going to have to sell them as chocolate/Wookiees and just hope the price makes sense. I don't think it's a great morph for people to be striving for. They should make super Wookiees or super chocolates, and that's probably it. Because it doesn't look substantially different than either.
And either super. Yeah.
Right. Justin will obviously have an easy time selling it. Yeah.
Right. And Justin's fine. He can do whatever he wants. But for me personally, like you said, I'd rather do a super Wookie than have an animal that you didn't know if it was worth $100 or $1,000. I mean, obviously the single genes you can tell, but the multi-genes, that's just an easy way to understand the value. I don't know. I hope that doesn't become a trend.
I just thought it was interesting that he thought it was interesting, and that he said he was planning on doing a side-by-side with super chocolates, and he thought he could point out the differences. It might be slightly darker, maybe, and have a little bit of the head notch, but that's the only difference I see.
It'll be interesting to watch him do it. It's not something I would be able to mess around with. I think they're best separate.
Mm-hmm.
Or with spot nose, if that doesn't make it. Do we know, does Wookie spot nose wobble?
I don't know. I spent all this last week, speaking of updates from last week, looking for cypress spot noses, bongo spot noses, bongo cypresses, just looking for images of them and reports and whatever. See how many times somebody's like, it wobbles. Almost none of them people self-report as wobbling.
Do you feel like that's reliable?
I don't know. It must not wobble to such an extent that it matters. Otherwise, they'd be like, fuck, look at this train wreck. Like, they say, obviously, for super spot nose and super cypress and super bongo. So the rate must be either quite low or the severity is also low. So it's no worse than, like, you know, a hidden Woma wobble, which is a very subtle and then also rare on top of that. I don't know. Write in, ladies and gentlemen at home. I want to know how wobbly are your ALS spider combos that aren't the lethal ones.
Yeah, I'd like to know, because a lot of good genes are in that complex, and if we're gonna do away with spider, like, we need to do a thorough, as a community, not you and I personally, but as a community, we need to do a thorough understanding of which genes should we be using. Like, should we be using spot nose? Should we be using things that have a severe wobble in the super form, or are they okay in their single form? It's kind of a gray area for me. And after having fallen in love with spider and then having to go through the whole like 12-step process of forgiveness on that, I don't want to get sucked in again on something else that's going to cause problems like that. I think that there are enough out there that don't cause problems, but some of these genes are big hitters. Like, so you can't just, you know, oh, I'm not going to work with anything in the spider complex. That really limits, I think, a lot of what you can do.
Yeah, I would die if we were like, don't work it with anything in the spider complex, because
right, it's like
blackheads
a lot
of
the really juicy stuff is in there.
Yeah, so that's can't be the answer unless we just want to give up on ball pythons altogether. The answer is obviously some sort of nuance, like obviously we can't make snakes that die, because that does not make a snake make. And we don't want snakes that have a poor quality of life. But is a mild wobble in 20% of the animals an appropriate amount of sort of collateral damage to having a fun snake hobby? Maybe.
Well, I know in the super cinnamons and the urban camos and the super black pastels and the panda pieds and all that stuff, I know that there's a high rate and people accept that for the ones that are fine.
Yeah, that one always struck me as
that confuses me too.
Way tough, because you're way saying tough. like a spider lives, right? But a pretzel that was supposed to be a snake does not get to live. So you're making something that must die.
Or if every clutch of urban camos you hatch out, one of them's missing half their face, is that acceptable? I don't know.
To me, it's not acceptable for my collection, but I don't know. Like, there are, in other kinds of animals, like chickens, there are lethal homozygotes. And so a quarter of all eggs just fail to hatch, and they still breed them all the time.
Okay.
Because the babies just die, and they're like, that's it, whatever, I just like the chicken. It's nice chicken. So
perspective's good.
Yeah, it's not what I want to do with my collection, but especially since every ball python egg is precious, they don't lay that many eggs. They don't always go every season. If half of them come out pretzel shaped and you have to feed them off, it seems like a waste to me.
Yeah, that's not something I'm going to choose to do. I had a super cinnamon pairing, not because it was my favorite pairing or because I want super cinnamons, but just because that was the male. But I think that my other male is going to get out of quarantine before. She's only at a 12 millimeter, so I think he's going to be able to steal the clutch, hopefully.
Good job. I have a super black pairing this year on purpose. I'm just going to suck it up, whatever happens. I would breed her to a hypo if I knew that's what she was het for, that was making her look like that. But since I don't, I should breed her to her son, because she could be het ultramel or something that also changed the color. So do I breed her just to every recessive male to figure it out, or just breed her to her son and risks the super blacks?
That is a question.
Right. So I've decided to just risk the super blacks. Jana said she was fired up about the Mutation Creation podcast this week.
Yeah, I listened to it while I was cleaning rats, and
me too.
It got me fired up. Like, it was good. It was really inspirational. It was really, like, motivational. Like, I listened to it, and I was like, ball python hobby, take all my money. Like, I was ready. I was ready to just like, here's all my money. Billy said it's going to be okay. I mean, obviously you have to be an adult and rationalize yourself out of that moment, but it was really good. And he had some really amazing points to invest in yourself, to put in the grind. If you have the money, invest it. He is pro debt, which I am not. Totally fine. You know, like that's a personal choice. We like to live debt free. So I'm not going to go out and like fill up my credit card for snakes, but the invest in yourself, believe in yourself, the market's there. It was very inspiring. Do you want to throw in your 2 cents on that?
I thought it was a little predatory, frankly, to say that even if he believed he could do 200% return, so spending 23% on a credit card was fine, APR, that doesn't mean everyone can do 200%.
Right.
In 2 years.
Absolutely.
They might not even have the females to do that. So even saying that out loud is frankly predatory.
Somebody's not going to be able to roll themselves back in and
right.
take
or
that with a grain of salt.
Their rack gets a short and it heats, the whole thing melts and all those snakes die. So like now they are not only sub snakes, they have 23% credit card debt they use to finance that. A lot of this stuff, the ball python sort of enthusiasm of how you're going to win is the only reason why the whole hobby exists. Is like you need to get people hyped up about spending money so that they could begin to beat the market.
That's how multi-level marketing works.
Yeah, so he has to do that and say that to be sort of at the top of the Ponzi scheme. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to take out a credit card. You don't have to spend all of your money. You can go as slow or as fast as you want. Or you could pick a species, frankly, that does not have the same speed of depreciation as ball pythons do. So in emerald tree boas, you can whip out your credit card for that too, but the emerald tree boa today is going to cost the same amount as emerald tree boa, or more expensive, frankly, in 6 years. Like the same animal. So like you don't have to rotate out males every year because every animal is precious and important. So there's obviously a way to have a reptile business that is not the like morph grind, spend $250K right now and do it that way. There's other ways to do it. So if you want to like have a relationship with your male snakes, you know what I mean? Do you get to have a relationship with your male snakes, Jana?
Yes.
For 1 year.
I don't for 1 year, and then you have to pop them off and get a different one.
But people who do other breeds of snakes, kinds of snakes, can have a male for longer than a year or two.
Yeah, I only have one male breeding from last season.
Right, and so this is how ball pythons work. It's sort of like I've accepted. I'm not arguing that ball pythons should be different. I'm saying if someone craves to have a reptile breeding business that's a little bit more humane to males, there are other markets where that works that way. It's not quite as like, well, you've been here 1 year, your time's up. Bye. Doesn't matter that I named you or whatever. You could still have a pet. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm like rambling a little bit. One, to like double down that the markets are different elsewhere and you can still make money doing other things. The Ponzi scheme does not always have to be so brutal as it is in ball pythons. It's absolutely like aggressively fast, the slope that you fall down on. And so people will be on the bottom trying to work their way up, and they'll never work their way up because they frankly just don't have the means to do that. And it's not from not working hard enough or whatever. It's purely about how much money they can invest per year. But if they had bought like 5 female green tree pythons, they would probably be doing better than if they'd bought the same amount of money in ball pythons, because by the time you get there, and each animal is more sort of valuable long term.
I thought you were going to talk about the secret ingredient.
The secret ingredient?
We went a totally different direction than I thought you were going with that.
Oh, with Billy's? I just think most new people who get in and are like, I'm ball python, whatever, they eventually figure out that ball pythons is a punishing part of the hobby that doesn't value the animals' lives as much as it should. And there are other hobbies where you can do it slower and you can like enjoy your males, enjoy selective breeding, but still make a profit and have a functioning business. What was the secret ingredient?
that like you could throw a bunch of money into it, you could buy the right projects, yet is everyone successful who does that?
No. But then that defeats the whole point of
Like
his like rah
if you
rah.
bought one clown pied male and five or four clown pied females, are you going to be unsuccessful?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because I think most people don't want. People are very good at buying snakes. People are much worse at selling snakes. And the emotional toll of selling snakes is what most people get out for. If you stay in, you will always win eventually. That is true. Right? The longer you stay in, the more you will win just by proxy of you breeding animals, and some of them will breed each other.
Okay.
Right? So you'll get your investment back. But most people don't stay in because the business of being in the reptile business is punishing in itself. So I hardly know anybody who's still in from when I was first in of any kind of hobby. And all the people who became like mid-level people or people that made 250K, how many of them are still in? And it's not because they weren't making money. It's just because it was punishing, hard, irritating work, and people suck. You know, every sale is like a sale to someone who's trying to like neg you down because they're going to be a next breeder too. Not all the time, but you know what I mean. So that's why people get out. So the secret sauce is just like sheer force of will.
Endurance.
Yeah. That's what I think the secret sauce is. Doesn't matter what species you're breeding or how much you put in, just duration of time and the ability to tolerate bullshit. Which I don't even know if I have enough ability to tolerate bullshit, to be honest. Maybe I don't have the secret sauce.
Well, hot take, youngest of 9. So my bullshit capacity is very, very high.
It'll be interesting to see how you feel about ball pythons after this year, because you're going to be running a lot more females of higher quality with better males. So, like, I don't know how you feel about sitting on stuff versus selling stuff versus what project you think is both satisfying enough to be worth selling to that clientele.
Right. I think that me in a year is going to have opinions that are vastly different than I have sitting right here now.
Right. Because you've only been trying to sell, for the most part, like show fodder type animals and maybe one or two investment quality animals.
1 or 2 investment quality animals, and the rest have been show quality, which is not worth individual sales. The individual sales do completely kill your soul. The selling at the shows is amazing. I think anything not high end, if I continue to do the shows, I will sell at shows, and then after the show is over, I think I will wholesale what is left
from this year's inventory.
Yes, and then I think that's what I'll do next year as well.
So you'll run it to 2 shows, like a fall show and a winter show, and then sell in the winter?
Correct.
It's hard to say you'll wholesale everything in the fall because you're competing with everyone else in the fall.
Right.
So
I don't know. We'll see what I do, but that's kind of the plan.
I don't know. I obviously come from boas first, where like lineage and selective breeding and each male needs maybe 1 female, so it's not like a huge. So the males are more important than they are in ball pythons. Like they're more. Each individual male has a better chance of being picked up as a breeder, and it's not just immediately a pet because they can't do 1 to 8 or whatever.
Right.
So you can have a relationship with him. You can have him for 10 years or 20 years or forever. He can be your pet. He can be your friend. They don't feel that way about ball python males because you know they have a sort of time limit unless you officially designate them to be a pet and they get to go be a pet. But they will be sort of morphed out of the breeding rotation eventually.
I think as you're moving up, like you said, the pyramid and trying to get to the higher end of the pyramid, I think your
males might last a little longer because you.
I just mean that you
stronger.
Understand that there's a turnover as you're phasing out the lower end stuff for the higher end stuff. There's always this churning turnover in your collection, and I think, I don't know, maybe I'm still too green, too fresh, not damaged enough from the industry that I still like for the time that you are going to be my pet, you are going to have a name, and I'm going to know your personality, and I'm going to like you. And I mean, maybe it'll wear on me. We'll see. But right now, like, that's my
Right.
that's
I
my
don't
take
not
on
telling
it.
people not to name their pets if they're only going to have them for a year or two. I'm just saying it wears on me that I have bins that have animals in them, ball pythons, that I want to stay in those bins, but I know that animal does not have enough commercial value to justify the bin space that it's using, and I like that animal. So then, clearly, the smart thing to do would be to move that animal on, irrespective of how much I like it or what selective breeding project I think it should be part of. And I don't like that feeling, being forced to do something. That's all. Eventually, probably 20 years from now, ball pythons, this is my theory, will be like cornsnakes, where every ball python will be like 50 things in it and het for 50 things. Most of them will be between $200 and $400, like they sort of are now, where like codom mixes will be $200 to $400 depending on what's in them. And at that point, we'll go back to what you can do in cornsnakes now, where you can be like, I'm going to selectively breed the coolest black pastel that's really dark and granity and whatever, and it's all going to be selective breeding. We'll go back to that part of it more aggressively than we even are now. But while we wait for that time, what do I do with the animals that I currently have? I don't know. It's tough. Life's tough. Especially since they're so undervalued. You're like, oh, this animal's going to live 30 to 60 years. It cost me $75 to produce. Because it's male and just didn't like hit the right genes, it's worth nothing.
You're kind of a Debbie Downer today.
I know. Well, it's early.
Jeez, get the girl some coffee,
I know,
some pumpkin spice in there.
I just bought a bunch of corn snakes recently, and I was like, oh,
We gotta save that. We gotta save that for the update.
I know. All right. Well, those ones aren't even in yet, so like I don't know if they even count. But I was going through these corn snakes that were available, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy this random male for $95. It is not a high level combo. It is not a proven breeder. It just has like a little trait that I'm interested in accentuating through selective breeding, and it's okay. I just bought him. It doesn't like he doesn't take up that much space. He's beautiful and small. I'm happy to give him a couple girls and work to accentuate his little beautiful feature, and I don't feel bad about it at all. It's glorious. He's so
What you're saying is that you don't feel like you can do that with ball pythons.
right. I feel punished. Like I feel punished for my little granite and my inchy granite het clown males that are boring, stupid.
Oh, we definitely need to get you more sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you had a Palmetto addendum.
All right. Did you watch the video Sarah Moore put up about palmettos? Just in passing. They came out before
For the drama, I went back and watched most of it, but I didn't make it all the way to the end.
Okay, it doesn't matter because it's basically what we already reviewed anyway. But in the comments, somebody says, I find in my colony the rate of bulging eyeballs is about 20%, and it's predominantly male. And I was like,
Fascinating.
I was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But okay. Because corns are reverse of what ball pythons are. It's like WW and ZW. So the females are heterozygote sex chromosomes and the males are homozygote.
Cool.
So in boas and pythons, it's XY and XX. So the males have the heterozygous one. So like if a male doesn't have a full sex chromosome. So if he's missing information, he's more likely to die if there's like a mutant allele on his X side, because the rest of the information from the Y might not be there. That's why male embryos are weaker in boas and ball pythons. But in corn snakes, it should be the other way around. So the females should be weaker.
You're saying that anecdotal comment supports that.
I'm saying it doesn't
theory.
support that. So then I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
Well, wouldn't you say that if the females were weaker, that they wouldn't hatch? And so then the males are the ones that are hatching, because the females that would have the bug eyes and the problems would be more severe.
They don't,
so they're not hatching out?
not hatch. They just have big eyes. They all hatch.
Oh, okay.
There's no lethalness to it that I'm aware of. That's just a confusing thought. Put a pin in that thought. I don't have a good solution for why there would be a gender basis for it.
Okay.
Then I went on Morph Market. I looked at every palmetto that was for sale. I did not see a difference in like bug-eyedness per gender. And it is like the end of the year. More than 20% had some amount of bug-eyedness. More like
a lot.
More like 70%.
Like half? Or 70, yeah. I mean, I was going to say there was a lot. When I looked, I couldn't find
these are
any
the
that
leftovers of the year. So that's
right, okay.
part of the problem. But I think that person who said 20% was not counting the bug-eyed animals that are like 5 or 10% bug-eyed. Was only counting like the severe cases. But to me, almost every palmetto looks a little bit bug-eyed, more bug-eyed, a little bit more. And then around like its eye is halfway out of its head, it starts to look gross. It's kind of cute when it's slightly...
like a little noodle.
Yeah. When it looks like a Transpicos rat snake, basically, it's just like, whoa. But it's fine. Like, usually like the black sort of inner part of the eye that you can't see normally. If you can't see that still, it's tolerable. When you can start to see it, it gets worse. So I think I don't know if his number is correct or not, 20%. I don't know if his gender assessment is correct or not, but it's probably okay since none of them are lethal. Do you still want a palmetto if 50% of them have bug eyes?
Hot take, probably not.
Yeah, to some extent. And maybe 20% of them are so bad they have to rehomed as like pet only because they look bad. Maybe 30% you could like sneak in there as totally normal. Wink, wink, even though they clearly do have larger than normal eyes. This is a no judgment zone. I don't know what the right answer is. Because they honestly aren't dying. So like maybe it's fine. Who cares? What bothers me still is people are like, we don't know why they have bug eyes in their ads. So we recommend these ones aren't used for breeders. I almost think people should just say like, we do know why they have big eyes. And it's totally attached to the gene. But you can use it for a breeder because no matter which one you pick, they're all going to come out at the same rate, 20 or 30%.
Right.
So even
if both parents are fine, their offspring are still not fine.
Don't have a pet price. Have them all be the same. Just like discount ones just because they're physically uglier, but it's not like sold as a pet only, like so cheap that it doesn't matter. Those snakes will keep doing it. So you don't need to price them as animals that can't be bred because they're all the same kind of can't be bred. So it doesn't matter to me. Same problem with boas and the eyeball with albino boas. People are like, I don't breed the ones with the eyeballs that are falling out of their heads. You can. Doesn't matter. I don't care. The snake is fine. You have chosen to put albinism in the boa, and so a certain percent of them will have bad eyeballs. End of story.
Yeah. I don't know why I always like the projects with all the issues.
I almost thought about buying one too as I was there, and I still would maybe get into it. I just sort of don't want to even deal with it. Like figuring out the pricing for like a sort of eyeball too big. Like I made a Mojave lesser bell that had eyeballs that were too big, even though supposedly that's a good pairing. Its eyeballs were not so big that it was like a crisis, but it was absolutely bigger than it's supposed to be. So I did discount that one by $100, but I didn't make it like $50 pet. Just made it like slightly cosmetic reduction.
A little ding.
Yeah, little dings. Little B grade. Still breedable. But I'm not even sure if I should have discounted by $100 because half the bells of any combo that I see on Morph Market also have slightly too big eyes. That makes me not want to breed bells, period. Unless they're the high color bells like Super Mystics and Mystic Potions. Because those ones do not get big eyes ever, as far as I'm aware.
They're so much prettier.
What, full white ones or
I do not like a white snake. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry to all those that love the white snake. It's not for me. So ivory's not for me. Bell's not for me. I mean, I'll use an ivory in my breeding programs, but my goals are never ivories.
Right. I can see how that is appealing. But once you have it, what do you do with it after that? Nothing. You just have a white snake forever. But a super mystic, you can add or crystal. You can add stuff back to it to like change up what's there still. So those are the bell complex homozygotes that I'm interested in. And then their eyes are normal. So I will never breed again like a bell pairing on purpose to make bells. So that's what that pairing was for. Like make bells to sell. But if I have to deal with eyeballs issues in that pairing too, then I'm out.
Peace out.
Yeah, I gotta go. There's a lot of other things I can make besides eyeballs that don't work good.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. You could make and sell at the show probably 30 bells. I get asked all the time for them. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah, I did have more stuff to say about Billy, but I feel like I went on long enough. We'll maybe like do a whole episode on
multi-level marketing.
Yeah, maybe the idiosyncratic nature of the ball python market and how it's
maybe when you're not so like bitter.
Salty on it. I'm not so salty that I don't buy ball pythons. I don't want to go all in on ball pythons because I've seen what happens to people who go all in on ball pythons. They get churned up and spit out. Jana.
We'll see.
You're doing great.
I hope so.
Jana, how's your shed doing?
Oh my gosh, it's so small.
I saw your Instagram post today, and you walk in, you look around, you walk back out. Have you calculated how many racks you can put in it?
I have played with the square footage. I've done the little cutouts of racks and puzzle them around the room. And man, I need it. So it's 40 feet long, but half of it's carport and half of it's my building. Because of my county, if I wanted more than 200 square feet, I would have to have a permit. And they won't give you a permit because of where my location is on the water. And my property line is right next to a big road and blah, 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 blah. This is the biggest I could have. Right now I'm in a 6x10 space, but it's leaked into all the rooms of my house. So I don't know. We'll see. And I didn't get to have the door where I wanted it. That was a big snafu. My darling husband put electrical out to it, and then he put it in a pole, and then taped off the pole so the electrical was in the pole. And where he chose to place it was not the corner. It was just randomly along the outside wall where the door was supposed to go, because we didn't know where the door could go or if we got a say in where the door went until they delivered. And so he had put the electrical just randomly, and it just happened to be right in the center of the doorway of where I wanted the door.
Oh no.
So I had to put the door off the other way. So we'll see. I will have to play with it again and figure out where everything's going. It's definitely short term, the next 2 to 3 years that it'll work. But after that, I'm sure I'll outgrow it.
Your situation is tough in lots of ways. Partially because of the size of your building being forced to be small. And then you also somehow picked a triple recessive project right away, which is good. But you're going to need a lot of space to run that project. And then all the other double recessive projects you have floating merrily outside of it that are tangential.
Right.
You think you want to get an off-site location? Rent a commercial space or buy a shed
3
somewhere?
to 5 years, the plan is to push over my house. And it's a 1960s. In the 60s, they let you DIY your whole house and nobody cared. So it's a hot mess, not a cute 1960s. So we are hoping to push it over and do a daylight basement and then 2 floors. And so I would get I want to say 1,200 square feet of daylight basement.
Do you have to keep the same footprint of house?
We can...
for your permitting process?
No, we can extend towards the water.
Okay.
But not towards the street. So we are going to be... Our house right now is it's so small. It's 1,200 square feet. We are going to be making it deeper, if that makes sense. Anyway, it's quite a large space, and it will be just all one space. in the basement is the plan for now.
I know you have like a cool view, but would you consider moving anywhere in the region or in a different state?
At this time, my husband never wants to move again, so there's that.
All right. Nail in the coffin.
Nail in the coffin. We're here for better or for worse. I don't know if I go on my way to the top of any of the tiers and start making more than him, I may be able to convince him otherwise. I think that buying a property with the ability to put like a warehouse type building, that is what makes sense to me. I don't feel comfortable having it off-site. I would prefer it on my property, but the property that I have, that's not possible. So I think the basement idea is feasible, but we'll see.
It's
gonna take
totally
it year by year.
feasible. I love basements. I don't know why nobody. I know why I don't build basements here, but there's not enough houses with basements in this area.
Absolutely.
Because of the water table, but
not only will we double our house, we will also gain an entire basement. So that just feels like a yes to me.
It would just be hard because you wouldn't have a house to live in, or the snakes wouldn't have a... I'm assuming some of the snakes will still be in the house eventually, because I don't know how many can fit in your shed right now, if the rats are in there too, the ASFs.
So right now everybody fits completely fine.
Okay. How long will that last, Jana?
But I have plans of adding 2 or 3 ARS racks in there.
And that should get you to 2 years from now?
I'm hopeful. And then I want to add another hatchling rack, and that should all fit. So I should be okay. I should be able to fit in there 4 ARS racks, and then along one wall, like I'll have a sink and a freezer and hatchling racks, unless I keep them in the house, which I probably will. And then, but they fit if I want them to fit. And then incubator. If I put the hatchlings in my house and the incubator in my house, I've played with it a lot. It's going to be fine.
All right. Good job.
I mean, it's bigger than the space that you have just your ball pythons in.
Yes, it does look like that. I can probably fit 4 ARSs in there if I wanted it to be like tight.
Yeah, so I mean, I could cram quite a lot in that building and still be able to like open all the tubs and walk around. We'll see. It'll be tight by the time we get to a point where we're either moving or knocking down our house.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Even though like it looks much smaller in person than I had imagined in my mind. Even though everyone was telling me that's not big enough. Yeah. It's literally the biggest we could get in that space with our
like
laws.
AEP's ball shack size because it's like 6.
His long and skinny.
Yeah, it's like 6. No, maybe 4 on each side. How many does he have? ARSs or freedom readers? 4 on each side or so, and then
he just recently
hatchlings on one side.
No, he just took all the hatchlings out.
Right, but like when it was full, because I know he's expanding
it. His setup. I think he had 4 on one side.
There was a door, so there's 3.
And then there was a door, so then there was 3 on the other side, right. I believe, is what he had. I loved that.
I'm not sure how big of a collection anyone should have with just ball pythons, but having it like linear like that with all the adults in a row makes like workflow much more easy.
And it's more appealing. Mm-hmm. I would probably have to do it in rows and have 1 on a back wall and then 2 back to back and then 1 on a back wall.
That one's going to be hard. I mean, you'll have to suffer, but it'll be okay.
I'll have to suffer. At least like I won't have ball pythons in every room.
Right. Well, I mean, that's okay too.
Why don't you talk about your new intake?
I got a lavender Arctic possible het toffee belly breeder western hognose snake in last week with a crypto promise from JMG Reptiles. So that was fun. And I knew he was going to do that because he's like the most crypto scared person I've ever seen.
What is toffee belly?
It's a hypo type that just isn't hypo.
So is it a recessive or is it a...
Yes, sorry. A lot of stuff is recessive in colubrids.
So he could possibly actually be double recessive.
Yeah, but I don't have a way to prove that out anytime soon.
Okay.
I'm not particularly worried about it.
Now, is he a baby or is he big enough to go down for the winter? And will you be breeding hognoses come spring?
Yeah, he's 18 months old, but he's big enough to go down and will be breeding. So he's specifically bought because I have a 2018 female Western hognose that's Poss het lavender. I just wanted to prove her out. And even if she doesn't prove, we'll have Arctic's 100% het lavender, which are still a reasonable priced animal. Even the males are still reasonably priced. Like, it's a good value proposition.
They sell so fast.
Hopefully. I've heard people on the Discord, they were talking about, like, they're still sitting on males from last year. So, like, even though they do sell, it's
Oh,
almost...
maybe just the pet industry is what they sell, not the breeder industry.
Right, but I think she was sitting on male pet price range stuff, like albino, like not an exciting male, just like a normal. I think there's a difference between selling it at a show and trying to sell it personally. I don't think she does shows.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know anything about, I haven't sold any hognoses, Western hognoses, but even those shows are inherently extremely dangerous. You almost have to do shows if you're going to sell a lot of stuff that is pet price point, or just wholesale it immediately, because you're not going to move it necessarily fast enough for it to make sense, no matter what the species is. This is probably true for all of it. I like the storm clouds and moonbeams and all that shit. So, like, any lavender hognose combo is awesome. So I like lavender corns, but lavender corns have a tendency to both kink. Sometimes the females are just completely infertile. They just throw slugs their whole life. So that's a bummer. I still have them, but lavender hogs supposedly do not have that problem at all. So it's to satisfy the lavender desire without quite as much byproduct for king snake fodder, hopefully.
Yeah, that is one of my daughter's number one wanted snake.
You want a lavender hognose?
I know.
Are you gonna get into hognose too? Or?
If she has her say, yes. She loves hognose. Obviously, she's a huge fan of Emily at Snake Discovery, and so hognoses abound. So she really wants to get into the lavender hognose projects, but I think she needs to contribute a little bit more to the business if she's going to want to have projects of her own.
What if she cleans all of the rodents all the time?
Absolutely, I would totally let her pick
I can't
project.
wait until Alex cleans rodents.
I have had her help me. That's how, and she came to the show, which we're not going to record what happened there. So she's 9 and she helps, but not in a I'm super passionate about this and I'm willing to do the groundwork kind of help.
Soon though, maybe.
Hopefully
some people
soon.
like get, that like attention to detail brain that happens around that age.
Right. Yes.
That would be a good way to earn a lavender hognose.
Yes, I'm absolutely willing to let her work for projects and things. I tried to start garters this year twice and both went horribly wrong. I've got a trio of kings. I think that I'm not going to branch out to other species until I feel more comfortable with the 2 that I have.
Okay. Do you want to get different Cow King color morphs? Specifically Cow King color morphs, because you already have Cow King.
So I have a very, very elementary understanding of the Cow King morphs and how they interact with each other. I've got a rudimentary understanding. So I think that I'll just breed what I have. I don't think I necessarily want more than a trio at one time, unless I'm growing up replacements for that trio. So for right now, I think I'm content with that, and we'll see how it goes. If I could even get them to breed without eating each other, if I can even get them to produce eggs, if I can then
without
hatch
eating
those
their
eggs
they can also
without eating their eggs. Yeah, I mean, it could just all be disastrous, and I hate it. And so then I'll just keep the Cow Kings as trash cans. So I don't know. I think that I need a little more experience, and I need to get my building set up and going and think about space before I think about adding something like hognose or cornsnakes or anything like that. Because you like to do all of your species in separate areas. So do you plan to get more hognose, or are you just going to have the 2?
No, I've always wanted to expand hognose. That's why she was bought first, in the like
Right.
colubrid buying spree that's happened. It's just a matter of like the hognose market. I'm not sure why it took a back seat. Probably because she was not eating that well in her bioactive enclosure that she had. And I was like, is this species right for me if I can't get them to eat reliably?
Right.
Spoiler alert, took her out of it, put her in a smaller, less complicated cage. She eats great.
Oh.
So all that UVB and fresh plants and bioactive substrate did wonders.
She hated it.
Yeah. I know I'm a little soft on naturalistic enclosures in general, and I still think they have their time and place, but they also have not their time and place. And
Right.
people that like shit on me when they come and see what's going on, how their snake was bred or whatever, it's like, you don't get anything. You don't understand it. You have 2 snakes, and you think you have done God's blessing to snakes by putting in a bioactive 20 long glass tank with a heat lamp. I can sing the praises of not doing that all day, and they don't give a shit what I say. But
Right.
trust me, I've tried all of it before, and I retried it this time to double check if my feelings about how stupid it was were still correct. They still are correct.
Right. These rescuers, they're going to come rescue your baby snake.
Well, they buy it from me and look me right in the eyes and be like, I'm going to fix everything you're doing wrong. Just like, what? Are you?
Because I spent 3 hours on YouTube.
Exactly. And some people, what hurts me about all of it is people will get sucked in. They're new. They think their ball python should be in a bioactive in a glass top tank with a heat lamp, and then they struggle with temperature and humidity controls, just like they have for 40 years. We already know how to do a ball python better. If you want it in bioactive with lights and attractive decor, put it in a PVC. 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 Don't even start with a glass tank. Don't do it. Unless you buy the PVC glass tank toppers that like keep the humidity in. People still buy shit and put it in aquariums. Anyway, they don't give a shit what I say. So I don't know what to do about it. I'll make my own YouTube channel called Stop It.
Stop it.
Now, colubrids and stuff like that, they're usually fine in the glass top tank because they don't need super high humidity or temperatures that are really specific anyway. But this hognose wasn't eating because I think it was too much fun. She could dig down, go really deep behind the like back display.
Right. Why
So I'm
do they
like-
always got to go behind there?
So I'm like, you want to come out and eat? If you dig her out and give her the food, mad about that. If you left the food in there, she wouldn't come out enough to like notice it was there before it went bad. So she was not eating just because she never got a chance to interact with her own food.
Absolutely, which
So-
is a terrible,
So
terrible.
I would maybe like catch
cycle.
her like every 3 or 4 weeks. So she's 4 this year. A hognose could normally breed at like 3-ish. She's only just coming to size. Which is like, I don't feel
Just
like
having
eating.
too much fun.
I'm busy hiding, being mad. Okay, is it good that she was having too much fun? Maybe. She did like to dig around and kill her plants. If I was going to run large numbers of hognose, I would give them obviously still lots of substrate to dig around and do whatever they want. But it would still be, it would be a tub, so it could be like top down. So I could figure out right where they were in the tub,
Right.
reveal a little bit of substrate, and present the food item. Like in a 41 quart tub, you could find them over here
Right.
instead of like somewhere under
Just
40
tossing a
pounds
rodent
of
in.
substrate, there is a hognose
Right.
snake who might be my pet. I haven't seen it in about 6 months. Like,
Right.
I would literally not see her because there was like an undertank heater and basking potential.
Right.
The other thing that happens is people will buy a snake from me and be like, I immediately put it in a 20 long, like a baby corn snake or something. And a corn snake will do fine in that eventually, but it came from something small. So
Right.
invariably they don't want to eat. And it's usually not because the snake doesn't want to eat, it's because it's like it's too far away from where the snake is comfortable for them to get comfortable going over there. So they have to transition with a tub anyway. So you might as well quarantine in a tub. and just get bigger and bigger tubs until you get into the display cage of your. This is neither here nor there. I don't know why we're talking about this. This is why I don't have 1,000 hognoses, because I was struggling with this one hognose.
With one. Okay. So you're basically a wait and see too, how you go this next season with her. And
yes.
him.
Some people do have problems getting hognoses started, obviously, because they're frog and toad eaters primarily.
Right. When you did your scenting reptilinks, did you get toad scent for your hognose babies?
They sell frog.
Oh, sorry. Frog scent.
They don't sell toad. I knoll because I was trying to get rat snakes to eat, like lizard.
Okay.
So I have a knoll juice. I have frog reptilinks that I could smear on something still.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
I have a toad in the freezer that I found in the yard. Sorry, toad, who's just like on back burner in case we need it.
In case you need to thaw it out and slime.
Yeah.
And where'd you blend or
whatever?
Whatever.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of them will eat for like tuna or just fish smells.
Okay.
I'm not adverse to the process of converting an animal to plain frozen thawed. Like, that's something I'm comfortable with. But if it's like really irritating, would you want to have a couple hundred really irritating babies to start?
No, I would not. Thank you.
Because bows and balls are pretty good just automatically.
Yeah.
Right? They just come out. They're big. They're strong. They know what's up. But the little snakes sometimes are a problem.
Oh, update. The girl that I was force feeding, she took a live hopper on her own this week.
Good job.
No help. I just tossed it in there. And when I came back, I was like, I searched the room. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, did it get out?
Did you happen to move her or anything, or was same bin?
Same bin. I didn't do anything.
All right.
No, that's not true. Everybody got clean substrate and she got moved in the rack.
Okay.
She completely reset.
Could have been that. Could have just been time, because I think I might have cut this out of the last one, but I just feel like time sometimes does it. Like, they come out dumb. They just come out kind of dumb.
Yeah.
The little instincts haven't kicked in, and they actually can do it. They just need to hit like 3 or 4 brain cells extra need to turn on, and it's just time. A lot of times it will do.
Yeah, I think that I will approach it differently now that I've had a chance to experience that and have a chat with you about it. I think next time I'll wait. My experience is just putting it in their mouth. I've had them, those little brain cells clicked on.
Right.
And
I've had that happen.
1 or 2 meals have been, you put the head in their mouth, and then they're good to go. And then they literally take frozen thawed from that point on. And so I've had really good success, and it's been very minimal invasion. And so that's why I just went in there with that confidence. But then at that point time, if they don't just take it and swallow it, I'll just give the rodent to the trash can or whatever and let them continue to be.
In conclusion, of the clutches that Hogwarts has this year, if I have a good time with it, I will keep a bunch of females, and they'll be my like future collection. Like, I'll keep all the females or whatever.
Right.
If I have
because I'll either be visual or head.
Right. Plus a incomplete dominant on top of that.
Yeah, you said Arctic. That means nothing to me.
Arctic as an incomplete dominant, like 1 copy, doesn't look like much, but the double looks like a weird xanthic that's like darker. Like the blacks are blacker and it's reduced, but it's like white and
but it's not
silvery.
It's not a recessive. It's a codom.
Yeah, incomplete dominant. It's very hard to tell in the heterozygous form. It's very subtle.
Okay, but
so
the super
is awesome. And it has all black eyes.
Cool.
So like you have like if you can make like a lavender super Arctic, you have like a very like intensely purple with black eyes, but they're like it's like a purple. I don't know. It's like I'm all about whatever's going on there.
Okay. I speak very little jargon
Western
for
hognose.
Yes.
Yeah, hognose aren't 100% like on my radar. Here's what I like about hognose: they're smaller than even cornsnake, so they can comfortably fit in
forever. They're small forever.
A 28 quart equivalent or whatever, if you wanted them to, forever. They're expensive, so then you can make a functioning business out of exclusively hognoses if you wanted to. So being expensive is both a con and a benefit. But when I look at something I want to work with, it has to be expensive enough to justify cost of production.
Right. It has to be worth your time.
So hognoses fit that criteria beautifully. I guess the biggest problem with hognoses is there's not that many morphs. So you're line for line competing with everyone who has almost the exact same thing that you do.
I feel like they're getting there, though. Even just 2 years ago when we were watching Snake Discovery and my child had an obsession with hognoses, I feel like there wasn't very many. And now there's already like leucistics and like a bunch of other ones that I didn't know about and hadn't heard about that weren't being talked about even just 2 years ago.
I think a lot of them were there. They just weren't popularized yet or on Morph Market yet. Like Lemon Ghost was like an old-timey one that has been overlooked and then like brought back out.
Okay.
Or whatever. But yeah, leucism is new.
Super cool. And I'm not a white snake person, but a white hognose, I like it.
Did you see Fireball was selling them?
I try not to look at his stuff.
He's just like the only person selling visuals besides Travis Whistler. And I was like, where did he get those? Who did he make those? Or is he
I'm sure he traded somebody a high-end ball python for a breeding pair or something.
You think?
For sure.
He doesn't put any information, so I can't guess. Or are the Bells breeding Lucy hogs, and so he's also selling the Bell stock? Because the Bell breed all kinds of stuff. I just never...
It could just be that. I honestly don't think he breeds anything. I don't think he even touches snakes.
I thought some of the stuff he sold was his own production.
But he won't give you any information, so...
So you think none of it is bred by him?
How do you know?
Yeah, I don't know either.
We could hypothesize anything. I mean, they could be beaming them from space. He won't tell you. You know what I mean? Like,
I even asked the Discord, I'm like, why does Fireball have Lucy hogs? Because there's way more like colubrid people that talk to colubrid people in there. And they're like, right. Nobody knows. Where did it come from? We only had like commercially available visuals the last 2 years. So where did they come from? It could have been a trade. That kind of makes sense.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he traded somebody a breeding project because he liked them.
Yeah.
And he has very, very nice, valuable snakes that he could trade. Hey, I'll trade you for your.
But I don't think he accepts trades on his terms of service. Whatever. This doesn't matter.
He doesn't. But if he's headhunting Lucy's, all he has to do is say, "Hey."
Right, but he doesn't keep them. He immediately sold them as yearlings. So like.
Oh, so he had them for sale, but he's not had them for sale again? You're saying
right. He just sold the ones he got. Weirdly yearlings. Yes. So that's why I'm like, maybe the Bells were working the project, brought them in from Europe, kept them for a year, maybe didn't like them or whatever, and now want to sell them at 5 or 6K before the price drops invariably next year to like 1 or 2K each, even though they're yearlings or something. I'm just guessing. I have no idea, ladies and gentlemen at home. I just thought it was very unusual that a Fireball had high-end hognoses of this kind at this time.
Yeah, I try to steer clear of him just because I don't like the gray area of no information. So I try not to do business. Although the snake that I have coming in next week is from him, but I did not buy it from him.
Oh, the lesser. Do you want to talk about that yet or no?
Yeah, sure. On Facebook, a butter hypo het DG proved female was listed for sale at a ridiculously awesome price, and I scooped it up, and she just happens to have come from Fireball. So we actually don't know her age because Fireball doesn't tell anyone their age. She laid, and they didn't expect her to lay. They were just trying to get her back on food. They thought she was one. I'm guessing she's probably 2019, not 2020.
Yeah.
Based on the fact
from
that she laid in September and from Fireball. Yeah. So they got her about a year and like last January. So I guess like 10 months ago, she was at like 400 or 500 grams. And then, so I'm assuming that she was 2 at that point. And then they fed her up and she got to about like 1,100 grams and wasn't eating. So they threw in their visual chocolate hypo DG one time, I think in June or July. And then she ate a couple of meals and then didn't eat again and then laid 4 eggs in September. So I'm thinking that she's a 2019, and that's what I'm going to put her as in my thing. And I am buying her, and I know that that's where she originated. I wouldn't do business with him, but I'm okay with snatching this girl up for a steal.
Yeah, it was a great purchase.
Yeah, I'm not sorry.
Even if it's just a hypo, it's still fine.
Um,
That's about.
I
I mean, it's not a great to buy a lesser hypo, but at minimum, she's a lesser hypo because you can see.
correct. I
that.
can see that she's a lesser hypo, but I don't doubt because I was able to find the original listing from Fireball and match body patterns, and I don't think Fireball is lying about heads. So I do trust what he's listing his animals for, whether or not I agree with the way that he practices business. I do believe that that is the genetics of the animal, and it is the same animal. And also, the babies will be cut, I think, next week. So we should be able to see what she produces.
All right, good job.
Yeah.
I decided not to talk about my clutch because I don't have anything particularly exciting to say about it. Do you want to talk about your clutch?
They came out, they're super weird, and I'm waiting for them to shed. So I passed the pictures around, and I've gotten a lot of eye rolls that, yeah, those are het pieds. Good job. I see what I'm talking about. I've spent a long time talking to you about it, and you see what I'm talking about. And so, I don't know. I
don't think you're
going to
get good answers from anybody.
Well, see, I'm hoping they're not a dinker. I'm hoping they're an identifiable morph that I just don't have enough visual experience seeing. That would be my preference as to than having a dinker. And I still am not 100% sold. So backstory for those who don't know what's going on. I bought a Mojave het pied locally off Craigslist a year ago and bred her to my coral glow pied, who we think has some kind of genetic issue because he only produces females and a lot of his eggs or babies have been kinked or the eggs have gone bad. He also did get overheated mid-season, up over 100 degrees, so it could just be from that heat spike. And by the end of the season, they still hadn't fully recovered. But this clutch is all females, so I do think that he is the dad.
Oh, the other dad was albino pied?
We have no way of knowing. So I did throw in right before she ovulated a albino pied who was just albino pied. So we have no way of actually knowing who fathered it, but because they're all female and that's how his clutches have been, and two of them look like the het pied that he produced from another clutch. They have that funky coloring. I don't know. It's I don't know, and it might just be a bucket of normal het pied girls. I'm hoping once they shed out that I'll be able to, I don't know, put a name to the morph. But if they're dinkers, they're dinkers. I can't decide if I want to have dinkers growing up in my rack or if I just need to be really like business about it and let most of them go, because I do in the future know that I need space for all the double hets and stuff that I'm creating this season.
Yeah, you do have a space intensive projects that are real projects anyway.
Correct. So I'm not sure if I can spare that much space for everybody, especially since none of them are visual pied. So I'm not 100% sure what I'll do. I'm waiting to see them shed out, and I think I'll get some nice pictures and pass them around again. And if I get more eye rolls, then
I think you're going to get more eye rolls. I wouldn't rely on anybody like swooping in with like, this is exactly what it is. Because they're right. Het pied does make jungle type patterns.
That's fair.
But I don't think that's what's going on. Because
I don't either.
Your Mojave jungled by herself. She is het pied too, but she was the Mojave.
We don't know
fought
that she's allegedly het pied. Yeah. Allegedly, it's not been proven.
So you would just have to find in your heart that you're like, I want to waste 5 bins on these females. I don't even have a son to breed back to mom. I have to sit on them and then sit on another 5 next. You just have to decide that or decide not to do that.
Correct.
Which is tough.
It's tough. The good thing is I don't have to decide for another 3+ months.
All right.
I can
Good
just
job.
stick them in the rack, and they can chill out because they're female hapides, and their value isn't going down the more that I feed them. So that part's great. So I could sit on them for a year and then be like, crap, I have 50 double hets that I would rather have. Bye. But for now, it's very tempting to try to tease and play with these, but I also know that it's not necessarily profitable or worth my time in the space allotments that I have.
Hmm.
I definitely am going to keep breeding mom. I am definitely going to keep at least one of the offspring, but I don't know about the rest. We'll see. And you don't want to talk about your your GHI clown got the clutch.
Yeah, well, I guess we already said he got the clutch. I was just going to talk about the possibility of maybe there being the dinker gene in there, but it's so maybe that it almost doesn't matter. I go back and forth like, do I keep all these things because they're no? The answer is probably no. But I like keeping things that are weird, and even if they're just polygenic variation, because that's how you make a nice looking snake, is doubling down on
Absolutely.
polygenic variation. So if you
So
made a pied line that has always jungle type babies born out of it as like the byproducts,
you're not going to lose with that, right?
right? That'd be cool, no matter what, because all of your hets will be jungle-y looking all the time, because it's obviously reproducible. Most jungles, by historically, are not reproducible. They're just weird, like an incubation weirdness. The jungle pattern doesn't keep going. Yours already has, so even if it's polygenic, it's proven. That's fun.
And like I said, yeah, so you should, for your dinker projects, you should keep the ones that you would keep if the dinker part wasn't involved. But like if there's two snakes that you're like, I don't know which one I should keep, I would lean towards the dinkery one rather than the one that's not dink. And then, like, 'cause that's only going to enhance your project, but you have to keep the snakes you need for your project and not keep snakes that are dinkery and fun, if that makes sense.
That's the quote unquote right way, but
Right. That's the business,
right.
the
To
hard
me
business
though,
way, not
like,
necessarily the intellectual fun of it.
yeah, I would not keep ball pythons if I couldn't at least make a cursory effort in doing polygenic work too, because it's not fun otherwise. It's literally just I have a GHI and you have a GHI. They're both worth $50. Boring. You know what I mean? To me it's not enough. So I have to keep some of the dinkers. Although I didn't keep like every animal that I thought had some sort of trait that we could expand upon through selective breeding. Like sometimes pastels have like lots of like really beautiful hooking, which sounds stupid to even say out loud. But the hooking is something that's sometimes monogenic and sometimes not. But you could actually make a really complex pastel, just pastel. Lots of hooking and busyness by just picking the busiest pastels and going from there. Now, who would ever pay you any money for that?
For a busier pastel, no one.
Yeah, no one. But the one thing you have to remember is you can change the market by convincing someone that something has value. So
Right.
no matter what you're doing, hognose snakes that don't eat, ball pythons that nobody wants, weird esoteric colubrids from South America. If you can convince someone it's worth having at the price you're selling it, then you did it. You've
What
achieved.
you're saying is I need to moonlight as a used car salesman and get some much needed marketing experience.
Or LuLaRoe leggings.
Ugh.
I'm just kidding. Don't do that. MLMs are bad. But it's the same thing because all the
Right,
value
right,
is
right, right, right.
relative. So
Correct.
I just bought a
How much do
normal
you gotta
corn
have
snake
it?
for $275.
Ouch.
There's no heads, nothing. It's just been selectively bred so hard that it looks better than any other corn snake ever.
Is this the one you teased on your Instagram?
Oh, I bought that one for $600. This is a different one, but they're basically both normal corn snakes. The 600 one is older. It's a proven breeder. It is so nice.
Are we gonna get to see them? Is what I'm asking.
Oh, and I get them. I don't have them yet, so I don't want to
Do you
send
have
his picture. I mean, I can send you a picture for
for
privately,
me,
but I don't
but
want to post
right,
it
but
on
not on
Facebook.
Instagram. Okay,
Yeah,
that's fair.
And I'll keep it a secret to the audience at home.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. I won't share it. It's fine.
it's just it probably took 15 years of selective breeding to get just those polygenics to line up that well. And I own one of her daughters, and I bought one of her sons with her, and they do not look as good as she does. So even breeding her to like a kind of suboptimal male has not reproduced how attractive and beautiful she is. So you would need to spend a lifetime line breeding things back together to get back to how awesome the original matriarch is.
Interesting.
And I'm in. Sign me up.
Sign me up. I mean, come on. I have I have 2 dinkers in my racks. A little bitty baby one and a giant one, who hopefully is gonna lay in January.
Right, but I guess I want to dial home that you don't have to. There doesn't have to be a dinker to be a difference that's worth selecting for. It could just
Selective
be
breeding. No, I got that too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah. So if you
minimize your selective.
If you want to have high qualities that you like within the morphs that still work in your project, do that. That's good. But also, it might sometimes be worth taking a year break to like double down on getting a really dark Granity normal into your GHI, lesser cine, whatever, to make them even darker. Like a set of hets that are even darker, that it can come back. Or throwing all those ugly reduced clowns out in the trash can, getting some busy clowns, so that when you go to make kikis, they aren't so reduced that the little chevrons are little dots, and that's all you got. And then you're like, fuck, this is bullshit. I wanted big chevrons.
I need to get some busy clowns. You're not wrong.
You don't have to put them in the trash. You could just give them to me. It's fine.
I knew that was coming.
No, but it's
don't ever put your clowns in the trash. Don't ever put a snake in the trash.
No, they're fine.
But don't ever throw out your clowns.
It's just those clowns that you have that are reduced, and this is my advice to people at home, go ahead and double down on that and put those in your DG clown project, because it's already going to reduce the shit out of it anyway. So it doesn't hurt the project to make a kind of reduced pastel super inchy DG clown. It's going to make the little circles even circular, like whatever, doesn't matter. But it will substantially change the outcome of a GHI, Mojave, Wookie, Yellow Belly, fucking whatever the fuck, Kraken. A lot. Like if you go right now and look at Morph Mixology's GHA Mojave, sorry Morph Mixology.
Is it on Instagram?
It's for sale on Morph Market. It's because it has a blade or a reducer in it. It almost doesn't even look like a GHI Mojave clown. And then you go scroll down to some of the other ones, they look really complicated and busy. It's because they don't have a reducer in them. They're allowed to do whatever they want. It's that much of a difference. It changes the morph that much.
Hot take, everybody.
Hot take. And I think in a lot of combos it doesn't matter. Like in Pied, if you had blade in your Pied, is there any difference that anyone notices? I don't think so.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, so like, if you're going to make your clown Pieds out of your blade or reduced clown stock, that's probably fine too. Are you looking at it? I don't even know.
I am looking at it, sorry.
Do you see it?
Hot take, I gotta go look at it. Are we sure that's even a clown? Whoa.
He only has one animal listed as a GHA Mojave clown.
No, I see it, and I see
and
what
it's
you're saying.
absolutely that morph combo. It's just because there's a reducer in there, it has separated everything out and made it just look like still an attractive enough animal, but it doesn't look like the way the animal could look.
Okay, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go buy 3 really busy clown girls.
Yeah, and the other problem is hypo is a reducer. Het, hypo, and hypo are reducers too. So even though I like them, you will be fighting the reducing probability of hypo in a hypo clown combo. Also.
Yeah, so when I do enhancer Kiki, I will have to be fighting that. So I need the busiest clowns I can find as a base.
Yes, or add stuff that makes clowns stay busy, like spot nose and cypress and stuff like that, in addition to like the base of busyness clowns.
We want to talk about the pros and cons of selecting a power male that may have a suboptimal gene. So I need a clown G-stripe double visual male, also called a Kiki.
Yeah.
Garrick DeMeyer is working this project, and usually the source if you're looking to buy a double visual. So he just recently put out an email that had all of his snakes for sale because he was behind on listing them. And on it was a Kiki male that was banana lesser clown genetic stripe. And I don't want lesser. My G-stripe male right now has lesser. It's likely that a lot of his offspring that I make with him to produce double hets will have lesser. So it was not an optimal gene for me to have in my powerhouse male. Not to mention, it's not my favorite gene in general, and I don't think that it adds to the Kiki project for the direction that I plan on going with it.
It does seem to
So
reduce Kiki quite a bit.
Yes, it does. It shrinks those chevrons that we were talking about wanting to make bigger, and I don't love the color that it makes it. So I was hesitant to even think about purchasing that male. The plan has always been to buy one in the fall of next year. But then, I've been seeing the trend and the prices on the market and how Kiki is just exploding. And it was worth looking at, should I buy one now and have it be ready for the next fall season? The numbers say yes. Yes, go buy that male. It doesn't matter that he has the lesser. We'll work around it. It's not a deal breaker gene like spider. It's also not pastel. So these are all bonuses. Lesser I could work around. So I decided to, with my husband, who, when we buy big purchase snakes, we discuss it and run numbers and pros and cons. And I missed him. And so my answer to, is it worth it with a suboptimal gene? There are deal breaker genes, and then there are suboptimal genes like pastel or lesser, or genes that don't fit with your project, like you said, like blade and other things that would reduce for Kiki, specifically for Kiki that I'm working on. And so deal breakers, don't buy a powerhouse male that has a deal breaker gene in it like spider. But for lesser, should I have hesitated? Probably not.
I think it really depends, obviously, on like the makeup of your collection. Like you probably have enough animals that he doesn't ever have to be with a lesser.
Right.
So in your case, getting that year of growth advantage, like he's a 2021 baby instead of waiting for a 2022, because you're not breeding that
Correct.
2022 to 2023, and then so on and on and on. And then it's quite a rare combo to be sold commercially, so you almost kind of take what you get. And if you had the money for them, I was like, well, to me, it's probably is, even with lesser, is worth it, because you're in a position where you wouldn't be making bells all day. You have enough, even if you just gave them clowns, just 100 clowns. You could just give them all a bunch of clowns, and that would still be worth it right there.
Right.
So I was on eventually like...
Even if you give them all normals.
If you gave them all normals, that would still be worth it. Because it doesn't matter that much that he's a lesser.
Right.
The thing that breaks my soul is that pastel Pompeii female on Morph Market. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to my eyes.
Oh, yeah?
To my eyes. Because you know what that would look like without pastel. And so, someone somewhere back in history bought, a pastel spot nose, yellow belly, red stripe, het clown or something. And they have like a clown, black pastel clown. And they're like, we're going to put these together. And I'm hoping I'm not going to hit the pastel. So someone like made that like Faustian bargain with Satan.
Right.
And
the
then
suboptimal
lost.
gene.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh God. Oh, please, Jesus. So you have to have big cojones. But I think lesser doesn't hurt it as bad as pastel hurt his pairing. Or maybe with like the female was a pastel clown. And he just had like a trillion pastel clowns and he wanted to just do something with them. Almost like the loss of what it could have been hurts me more than the fact that it's still technically a powerful animal.
But it's ruined.
Oh my God, it looks like a living nightmare. It's crazy. I'm so sorry, dude. Whoever you are.
Like I said, there's deal breakers.
Yeah.
And then there's compromises, especially when you're working such high-end projects where commercially available double visuals just aren't available. Like, I really should have just scooped that up a week ago. But
Did you
I honestly
message
didn't.
him before and ask him what he had? Because I know he sold a couple this year.
No, so I messaged him about a month ago. and got a list. And then I sat on it for a month.
Was he on there
Well, I
for a
told
month?
him,
I don't even
no,
know.
so he just put him on Morph Market like 2 or 3 days ago. It just was bad timing on my part. So he messaged me. I told him I was looking for kikis. He sent it to me and it was banana lesser. And I was like, pass, hard pass, thanks. And so then I never took it any further than that, other than to let him know that I was looking, and I'd probably message him in 6 months and see what he had hatched out for 2022. And then you had been sending me like links to expensive animals in that project.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. And I forwarded those links to my husband, and he about had a heart attack.
He's like, why didn't you go buy it and make double hets?
Correct.
Right.
He was like, why did we not buy this male? Why are we not doing this? There has to be some sort of mismanagement. So we sat down, but in like a humorous spirit, not in like a shake your finger at someone spirit. So we sat down and he did like a big old spreadsheet and he put in all the animals that I have that could go into that project. And then we discussed prices of those animals and he was like, yes, we need to buy this Kiki male. And I was like, okay, you're right. I'm stupid. Hey, cool. So I messaged Garrick DeMeyer and I was like, haha, just kidding. Actually, it's really stupid to have told you hard pass on that banana lesser. Can I buy it now? And he's like, well, actually, I just put it on Morph Market 2 days ago and it sold yesterday.
Oh man.
So it was on Morph Market for like 24 hours and it sold, of course, because it's a good male. And I drug my feet and I
It's
missed it.
okay
And
to
that's on
not
me.
want lesser in it. Like that is an okay choice to
I don't
make
want
also.
lesser, I don't want cinnamon, and I don't want pastel. And a lot of his kikis are going to come with those genes.
Right, no matter
And
what.
so it's a really high dollar male, and I really wanted the genes I wanted, like, or at least to not have genes I didn't want
Exactly.
in a high, especially when I plan on putting, to 8 to 10 a year for the next 3 years, or until I make something better to replace him, a double visual better to replace him. Like I said, I'd rather have just a basic Kiki with no extra genes than to have genes I didn't want, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Some people think the more the merrier, but that's not how I feel.
No, because it changes your collection forever, like irrevocably, because you end up having to can't just skip all the females out of
Right.
him forever just because they have lesser. You end up sort of having to keep them.
Right. So people don't think that with most genes, but if you pretend like, well, would you get it if it had a spider in it?
Nope.
And then people understand what you're saying if you put it into that perspective. And so while the genes are fine in other projects, some don't work in my project. And so when you're spending 10K on a snake that is going to go to multiple females at least 2 years, you don't want 57 spider clutches.
Oh, that would be crazy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was trying to be picky when there's no room in the market to be picky and when the genes weren't deal breaker genes. And so there is a point where you have to just take what you can get when you're up in the high level. Does that make sense? Like,
yes, because
beggars
there
can't
may be like
choosers.
5 available a year, and
Correct.
if you have the money to buy it now, you might as well buy it. You can always buy a replacement later if you have the money later, and you could just sub them out
Correct.
for a.
But there will not be any more Kiki males, 2020 males available again.
Right.
They're gone.
Only
They're gone.
2021.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. So it literally is now going to be a 3 to 6 month wait for any to be born, not even to bring them home. So that's fine. My timeline was next fall. I didn't realize that I'd have my husband's support with buying a 10K snake, because how we're supposed to be moving forward is we put up from the family savings the upfront investment in my business, and then from now on it's supposed to be me reinvesting in the business, profits I make reinvesting in the business. So if I want to deviate from that and spend family money, then we consult with each other and decide if it's a good idea or not. So we recently bought that snake from Billy, the enhancer pet clown posset G-stripe. And so that was something we conferred on. And so this next fall, I would have had the money from my business making that money. I didn't know that if I went to him with numbers and figures and how well this project is doing in the market, that he'd be like, holy crap, why do we not have one right now? You know, that's exciting. It's an exciting step forward in his thought process that he's like, I see it. I see where you're going. I see, like, he's never laid out my females like that. He's never, like, he asked for my breeding plans this year, like that. He's never taken that much interest in it. And he finally did. Like, he understands that it could be profitable, and he understands that it's a business, and he's a genius, and he just didn't care all that much, if that makes sense. And then when I sent him that listing that you sent me, he was like, and he just got really excited. And so even though we didn't get that male, I think him being excited about pairings and caring what snakes I'm putting to what snakes, that was pretty cool.
Good job, husband.
It was a win.
One point for husband.
Hot take, if you out there listening have a visual clown G-stripe male for sale, hit me up.
Have you messaged other randos that are in the project just to be like, are you sitting on?
I messaged Billy and I messaged Justin, and
what did Justin say?
He did not return my email, so I might Instagram him instead, but it was about a week ago and I haven't heard back from him. Billy has a clutch coming out that would be Enhancer Clown 66 G-stripe. If he hits the triple visual, obviously male or female, he's not selling those. And when I looked at it in the way that it made sense in my project, if I had a Kiki male that was also het Enhancer, that would be phenomenal. But an Enhancer Clown doesn't do the same thing for my project if it's only possible het G-stripe. Like, I can put a Kiki male to my Enhancer females and get there already, if that makes sense. So it didn't, and it's $5,000 more. So that wasn't what I was looking for. So I said no thank you to that. But there are a couple of other people. There's a genetic stripe group there is no genetic stripe clown specific group on Facebook, but it's talked about a lot in the genetic stripe group. So the founder of the project, I planned on emailing. And then I planned on making a post in there just to see who has what.
I think Matt Byram has a ton of it. Am I making that up? I don't know if he has a ton. I guess he has some for sale from time to time. Like female clowns, 100% het G-stripe or whatever. Female G-stripes, 66%. Like, he's been trying to put things together.
Yeah, I don't know. I will have to check him out. I need to make a list of who is working the project and touch bases with them. I know that locally Morph Mechanics is working the project, but he's got albino in it, and I don't want albino in it. He's just making hets. He doesn't have any visuals yet. Yeah, we can move on to birds.
Birds.
So our main topic today is birds as prey items for our snakes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
This is our Thanksgiving episode, everybody.
It makes me so happy. That's probably stupid. You can probably cut that out, but yay! My kids are going to freak out and want us to feed birds to all the snakes for Thanksgiving. Happy holidays.
It would be cute. I don't know if a decent number of your balls will probably refuse because they're just not used to it, but you can still try, you know? Jana knows this, but not everyone else does not know this. I live on a farm. There's 5 acres. I can have whatever I want, roaming free. I could have emus if I wanted to feed them to my snakes. A little big, but because I have a farm, because I'm interested in the husbandry of birds, I've always wanted to have birds as part of my sort of feeding regimen for my animals. The commercially available species that you could feed to a snake, either an egg or like whole carcass form, are actually more diverse than people think. There's finch, button quails, Turduckens quails, bantam chickens, full-size chickens, and then less predominantly ducks and turkeys. Most people only feed finch and button quail as eggs for, like, super small eggs for egg eater snakes. I don't know that many people that go out of their way to find finch eggs for their tegu or something. If they're going to go get eggs, they'll go get standard Turduckens quail egg size.
My friend has a tegu, but they also raise quail, and they give us the little baby quail eggs for the
Right. So
king snakes
those are
sometimes.
Turduckens quail. And you go
Okay.
down one more size, there's button quail. They're even
Okay.
cuter and smaller.
No, like the other ones, they were pretty
I know.
cute.
So go even
They're
cuter.
okay.
And you can go
That's
even
amazing.
cuter. And it goes deeper. And then you get even cuter. It's crazy. So if you wanted to feed your snake quail, most likely you're getting baby Turduckens quail. Like if you buy it on Rodent Pro,
Yes.
that's the most commercially bred size class of quail. And if you're a person, you can have them in your little quail setup and you can eat them like any other little bird that you might want to eat. The other option for like frequently available commercial animal, besides of course a chicken, a normal chicken, would be day-old chicks that are frozen that are on different vendors' websites. These are almost universally the byproduct of conventional egg production. Because we still haven't figured out, for some reason, how to economically artificially inseminate female chickens with only female sperm. So male chickens are born and they don't lay eggs. So when male chickens are born, they determine that they're male and most of them get just put into a dumpster and suffocate under the weight of their own siblings. It's not a great death. They don't get processed very well or treated well. So a very small percentage get frozen and sent for animal food. I wish the percentage was higher, frankly. So if you want to hurry up and get in on the chicken train, it'd be great.
Buy all the day-old chicks.
Please, faster. The other choice would be if you go on like, a small like backyard chicken company that sells 15 barred rocks to the family. Sometimes they'll have like fryer pan specials where they'll sell the males that they have that are like males of like a heritage breed to you for alive and ship it to your post office just like they would the hens for a relatively cheap price, sometimes as low as the frozen price from the commercial place. We'll go into more of that later. So if you wanted to like get in 50, they're not tortured, happy, and then immediately euthanize them, which sounds like torture, but they didn't suffer quite the same as they had the other way. That would be one way to also get in your day-old chicks and sort of alleviate the problem that modern agriculture has created for no reason. We're such assholes. It's incredible. Human beings. I want eggs. Meh. That's the sound human beings make when they want eggs. They sound like Scrooge McDuck. I demand eggs every month of the year, even though it's biologically inappropriate to have eggs in the winter. Meh. Yeah, sorry, chicken farmers out there. All right, moving on. So, what are the pros of eating birds? Prey variability. A day-old chick is quite lean compared to the equivalent rat of that size, or mouse, or ASF. It's even leaner. So if you're like, my snakes get fat, but they don't get like big, or you want them on a particular growth curve, you can sort of sub in a chick whenever you want. All colubrids that I have love chicks. I think they're a delight. And my boas love chicks, and my balls love chicks some of the time. Live and frozen thawed. Depends on the ball. And they don't get stuck on chicks. I'm not worried about that at all.
Did when I was looking into this for this episode read that most snakes and colubrids in the wild. So when they are wild caught, when they analyze their stomach content, it is a very small percentage rodent based. It's a much higher percentage of small birds and lizards.
Which are much leaner than a rodent.
Correct. So I found that very fascinating that actually in the wild, they're more apt to catch a lizard or bird as their meal than a rodent.
And it's probably not super fair to say like every time, but like there are some animals that are probably more obligate rodent feeders, Pituophis, that like go into rodent burrows and are very good at rodent burrow smashing grab, where they like kill everything in the burrow, stay there, take a massive dump, leave. Like that's like their life cycle. So obviously they're more rodent based. And then there's some species that are almost exclusively bird based when they're adults, like emerald tree boas and green tree pythons. Like they have long teeth to penetrate feathers and get hold the animal. They don't have long teeth because they're eating mice. They do eat mice in the wild though. So including birds would be very natural and very reasonable for their well-being and a nice variety. As far as eggs go, I've presented eggs to a lot of snakes, and a lot of them don't know they can eat it, even though in the wild they would eat it. So I don't know how to convince them to eat it.
I didn't have very great success with the eggs. They knew it was food with king snakes. They knew it was food. They knew they wanted to eat it, but they very quickly forgot it was there. Like, because they have to like work their mouth around it, and it's not an easy size for my king snakes to eat. So I found that like cracking
incited them to get excited about it.
They got really excited that they would work it and get it down.
Right.
But I had to like crack in a little bit, but then you run the risk of it just like exploding while they're trying to swallow it.
I haven't tried too many because I don't make that many small eggs. The smallest eggs I have are bantam eggs, which are even bigger than quail eggs.
Quail eggs were almost too big.
Yeah, so almost like only the very biggest snakes I have, I would even offer a bantam egg, like the big rat snakes, the very biggest corn snakes. And a lot of times they're just too confused, and I'm like, this is fine. But if I had like practiced with them, like giving them finch and quail eggs all along as they were growing up, I think they would know better. There's a really cool video of a Japanese rat snake breaking an egg, and it's with its like muscles in its neck, and then regurgitating the thing like as if it was an egg-eating snake. Like it knows how to do that instinctually.
That's amazing. Yeah, it was like Slurpee, thanks, spit out the other stuff.
It's in Japanese because it's like a wild-caught Japanese rat snake, but it's on YouTube if anybody's bored and wants to see like what your North American colubrids would do also if they were just a little bit more exposed to that prey item type from the beginning.
So I did, in my last purchase, I did purchase quail to try with my kings. So they will be getting a diet of mice and ball python culls and quail. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited to feed something that's excited to eat and to offer a variety of diet.
But ostensibly, you could offer them to your ball pythons if you wanted to.
I'm sure that the favorites will get offered on holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Thanksgiving. I mean, my daughter wants to know how we can make a special rat. How can we put a bow on a rat so that it can be a present for Christmas? And I'm like, well, we can't put a bow.
A mouse in the rat.
Oh, that's genius.
Stuff the rat in the chicken.
What is it like?
A turducken, but it's a
turducken. Thank you.
Ratkin.
Oh,
or
she
mouse,
would love that.
I don't know. Yeah, do any of that. It'd be funny.
That's genius. She's gonna love it. I'll have to make that a video.
Or go get like a cribo or one of those snakes that eats like literally any animal product on a plate. Like you can actually just give them a plate of like chicken breast and chicken thighs, raw of course, and then some fillets of a fish, like all decorated, and they'll just come in, just like shovel it all into the little face and then leave.
Wow.
It is very cool to watch, but then they like shit everywhere and then smear it. So like, is it worth it to have like that kind of snake that will?
My shit smearing snakes are always the really high end ones. I have probably the two most expensive. Yes, the two most expensive ones in my rack. Always. It's not like you go in and spot clean. It's a whole tub clean every time, and I'm like, you're lucky that you are a very valuable girl, or you would be out.
Another benefit is the omega-3, omega-6 ratio in rodents has always troubled me since always. Like a rodent is an obligate seed eater. That's how it was designed to live. By nature, it's very high omega-6. But obviously in the wild, snakes are not eating exclusively high omega-6 food items. They're eating other food items too. Birds, lizards, maybe even rodents that eat more grass, and so they have a different omega-3, 6 profile. So we're accidentally giving all snakes McDonald's, basically.
Yeah.
Extremely high omega-6. Because we feed commercial rodent food or dog food that is high in corn. Therefore, the mice and rats, by definition, are high in omega-6. The snakes are eating high omega-6. But if you fed birds are also obligate seed eaters to some extent. So they are also fed commercial food. But unlike a rat, you could have a chicken run around your yard and eat grass and have like a mixed diet based on forage. So it's possible you would get a slightly better like pasture-based nutrient profile in a bird that's allowed to go outside. Probably what people need to do is start working on getting feeder items that just have different nutrient profiles in general all the way. So if, like rabbits are probably the best because they don't eat seeds at all. So they're like the grass-fed beef equivalent here of the different things you could feed. So if you could feed
Do you know
rabbit
what
kits instead
rabbit
of
kit typically weighs?
it's about the size of a small medium rat.
Oh, okay.
It's not.
So it is in the realm of a ball python.
Yeah, it would be extraordinarily expensive though to feed ball pythons rabbit kits.
Breed and
Yeah, they don't
reproduce
breed
like...
enough that you'd be like, this is worth $2. It would be worth like when it's born, it has to be worth like $7 because it takes too long and they're too expensive to make.
Right.
So it would only be if you had your own internal production of rabbits and you were going to sprinkle in some rabbits. Guinea pigs are the other one, where if you fed baby guinea pigs before they get fat, they are also grazers with very minimal seed intake. So their omega-6 would be good. They just get so fat as adults. They're insane. They're like little piglets. That's why people eat them, because they're delicious. I can just tell, just by looking at their fat little butts. Wow. So that's something nobody talks about. Nobody in the entire universe.
No one is talking about it. I looked everywhere.
Right. So it's fine. And then like a lizard that eats insects and the insects only eat they eat grasshoppers, that lizard's nutrient profile is probably great. Better than maybe all of this other stuff combined. But lizards are expensive. So
lizards are very expensive. I looked into those to vary the king snake's diet. So I like to do that when I have the opportunity. Did you write down prices? Because I have some prices here to talk about if you want to, but I didn't want to.
Oh, for the different kinds?
Mm-hmm.
I did not.
I just did a quick and dirty comparison. Day-old chicks were running about 75 cents, and those run 25 to 60 grams. And
really
that's about equivalent.
Actually. What website is that on?
This is Rodent Pro, which is the one that had all the chicks and stuff. I know we don't generally buy from Rodent Pro if you're listening.
Yeah, that's the only one that sells the variety.
Correct.
So a day-old chick I wouldn't buy if it was less than 35 cents. Just me personally. All right, go ahead.
Well, they are the equivalent size of about a jumbo mouse. Yes. And the jumbo mice on Rodent Pro are $1.30.
Right. So no matter what, a chick from the commercial operation is cheaper per gram. And
correct.
And will stay cheaper per gram as it gets older because it gets bigger faster than a rat.
Which is really shocking to me.
Yeah, I used to buy chicks when
cheap they were.
Just to save money. Because I could feed boas no problem and switch back and forth. So even if I wasn't producing my own chicks, I would... A day-old chick is like, a yearling boa size or something. Just feed that the whole time.
Because the gram range is 25 to 60, and I was worried that a king snake wouldn't be able to handle a 60-gram day-old chick.
Probably not, but I doubt they're even putting 60 ones in there. Like they literally.
If they were all like 25, then I'd be totally happy.
They're probably coming straight from the thing, and they stick it in there, and they don't even grow it up any.
So I didn't get any day-old chicks. I did get quail. Quails are actually double the price of mice. The quail, day-old quail, were 7 to 10 grams, which is equivalent to a small mouse, and they are $1.08, and a small mouse is only 64 cents. So quail is double the price, whereas day-old chicks. I will, next time I put in an order for any kind of bird of prey item, I will try the day-old chicks and see if I get a bunch of smaller ones. I was just concerned that they wouldn't be small enough for kings.
Yeah, if they're 60 grams, they probably would be too big.
But you said that I could feed that to a ball python.
Yeah.
Try
or at least try.
Anyway.
So quail are more expensive because quail have to be run in like a battery system, just like you do with rabbits or whatever. You can't let them just run around in like an open barn because they'll fly away and leave. And they don't give a fuck.
Okay.
So that's why they're more expensive. So if you kept quail at home as like you wanted to have like in your carport some like additional pets that are also feeders, but also
Right.
pets. You could have
A
like
chicken coop, a fully enclosed.
or something, but they usually do batteries. So like a little feeder and little water nipple with a bucket, and it drips, and it's like a rat cage basically, but it's for tiny birds.
Okay.
You can do an aviary style that is like a chicken coop, but they fight. So they have to be in like 1-4 colonies or 1-3 colonies, because the males will fight and kill each other.
Interesting.
So they're not as easy as chickens, which will also fight and kill each other, but there's enough space that they can figure it out, the males.
Yeah. So
But
I did
if
get
you did it at
quail
home,
to
your cost of
try.
production would be insanely low, because they're actually like the fastest way to make protein, besides maybe rabbits. Rabbits and quail like fight. Most efficient feed to protein conversion. So you can make a little
Interesting.
thing that's an edible treat very quickly and very efficiently. And also you can eat it, so that's a fun feature.
My husband would love that. It's all about self-sufficient. Like we live on the wrong piece of property for that.
Yeah, it's part of why I have so many weird classes of animals. Like they could be a feeder for a snake, and they could also be food and whatever for people or dogs or cats or whatever.
Right. Anyway, I just thought it was fascinating that quail were more expensive. I will next time try day-old chicks and report back
Yeah, those day-old
if
chicks are cheap
if
because
they
they're
are.
being subsidized. But if I bet the price goes down in the spring, because the price is kind of expensive sounding to me, when the hatcheries go full bore and they have a bunch of byproduct, and it's almost probably even given to them for free basically, and they just are doing the labor of bagging it up.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe
If
in
you
the
could,
spring I'll grab up some and see if there's the small ones or if they are a mixed
yeah,
bag.
I hatch almost on continuous rotation dozens of chicks all spring when there's way too many eggs for any human to eat that many eggs. And I almost,
When you're having eggs for all 3 meals a day and they're
yeah,
still
I
littering your
stick
yard.
all those in the incubator and I hatch them out, and like 99% of them go as day old chicks. And sometimes I'll grow them out to like small rat, medium rat, or large rat equivalents of grams, because they become
Oh,
that
okay.
weight faster than a rat. Because
It's
they're
amazing.
born at like an ounce or so, which is whatever, 30, 40 grams or something ish. So like a large mouse weaned rat size, but they can become a medium rat in like 2 weeks. So if I just stick them in like a brooder and just feed them a couple times, I have like a bunch of medium rats just magically appear with almost no labor, because I can put them on bedding one time and they're all loose having fun together. They don't hurt each other or need any kind of management. I just feed them and water them every day, and then I
And
can
they're
have
not trying to escape or chew through the container.
right. So I can make a shit ton of rat equivalents very quickly with minimal labor, and that's my favorite thing about them. I mean, the potential health benefits of a leaner food item, great, but I can feed a lot of boas really quickly. And so some people will buy in a box of the fryer pan special, and we'll do this specifically for snakes. So like I need mediums for the fall for my carpet pythons or whatever. I'm gonna buy in 100 day old chicks. I'm gonna gas and freeze 50 of them for personal use, and I'm gonna sit on the other ones until there's 20 of them are smalls, call them that way, and then 20 of them are mediums or largest and call them that way, and then put them up that size. So I do that all the time. And I've tried to like trick people into buying them, being like, hey, try this as an option. Very little takers. Nobody gives a crap.
I haven't heard anyone talking about it.
Right, they don't seem to care. And that's fine. It's very economical to feed a snake. Young chicken. Extraordinarily economical. There are negatives.
Oh, good, because I didn't see anything other than the mythical, they'll get stuck on them.
Yeah, they don't get stuck on them in my experience. And if they did, it's cheaper.
It's a win-win, is what
Yeah,
you're
so
saying.
it's only you can't sell it, maybe, Boas love it. Boas are probably like not obligate bird eaters, but high percent bird eater in the wild, like 70% of their diet. The rest of it's lizards.
I'm really excited to see if the king snakes go for it.
I'm sure they'll be delighted. It's going to be fun. Chondro people scent their pinkies with chick down, but they don't want to go get a little bird hatchling because it's expensive, like a finch baby, to feed it because it's too much work and expensive. But a little baby chondro even knows it wants to eat chicks and lizards deep down inside. So it's very natural and normal and potentially cheaper if it's a chicken-based organism. But anyway, the negatives are the sternum is really wide. The breastbone that all the flight muscles attach to is wide. So for the same weight, it's wider than equivalent rat. So if you think
that was my main concern.
Yeah. So if you think your snake is kind of borderline for that size prey, you would want to size down and maybe feed them 2.
That's why I did go ahead and get the quail, because I can feed 2 quail, but I was worried that I wouldn't be able to feed them a day-old chick.
Right. I think yours, what they're putting in those bags is day-old chicks, then they will eat them. But if they're putting in something that legitimately is 60 grams and is like 5 days old or something, then it wouldn't be able to eat them. We'll have to just order and see what the mix is that they send.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. But I didn't know anybody who knew. So,
and
then, as a rodent pro.
Some people are concerned that the beak and or nails will hurt the snake internally. Because the beak is like a pokey thing and the nails are sharp. But just like a rat, the limbs fold down so the nails aren't pointing up. Like rats have really sharp nails, and mice too. So if you're concerned about that for rat, you should be like, so they'll cut off all the fingers and toes of chicks and the beak. The beak, I guess people have never touched birds' beaks. They're not like razor sharp or something, and they like have give. So if you press a chicken's beak, it like deforms where you're pressing it. So I don't have any concerns about chicken or duck or whatever beaks. I will trim the claws of Muscovy ducks' feet, but their claws are like raptor claws. They're like curved and much longer than a chicken's. I don't do chickens at all. They're quite worn down by being a chicken.
I think that if that's what they're eating in the wild, that it seems a little redundant and ridiculous to be chopping off day-old chick fingers and beak.
Yeah, day-old chick definitely. They're also soft
okay.
and fluffy. I mean, if you're feeding hawks, sure, go ahead, chop off those talons. Or eagles, bald eagles. If you're feeding bald eagles, you have other problems, federal ones. But besides that,
don't tell us because it's probably illegal.
All right, don't tell the feds. They have you. Oh, there they are at the door. Oh. They better answer that. They're coming. But besides that, I wouldn't worry about it. The bigger the bird, the more feathers they put on, the gassier the snake becomes when it's pooping it out.
See, here's the hot take. What you're telling me is I'm going to be feeding the birds and they're going to be stinky.
To me, they don't smell any different. They're just like not the fur on a mouse like acts like a fiber or something. It like binds the turd together. Okay.
The things we talk about, honestly.
When a snake eats a bird, the feathers don't bind the turd together, so the turd's kind of loose. And people are like, it smells. And I'm like, I don't think it smells. I think you're just getting more surface area, right?
It's an explosion rather than encapsulated.
Right.
That's what
this is a negative, technically, but it's the way it's supposed to eat. So is it that much of a negative? Just maybe don't feed bird every time. And then like a mouse turd and a bird turd will mix together. And then it'll come out sort of in between composition.
Right. Well, my plan was because the quail are too small for a meal.
Right.
For a breeding king snake. And so I was going to do a mouse and a quail.
And the fuzzy ones, so like baby quail and baby chicks, they don't have nearly as much problem as when they get bigger. And the feathers are more keratinous and not like the primitive fluffy feathers.
It's not the baby ones.
Yeah, when a boa eats a chick that's like a pound, which I do raise them up to that big to feed to big boas. That's like perfect food. It's like perfectly lean and reasonable. And it's ran around outside and it's nice. There are flight feathers on the wings. So like they'll have these turds that have like the pins on the flight feathers will be just like lined up in the turd. They can't digest any of that. And then the whole thing will be kind of wet because there's just feathers and meat. It's all right. You just have to get past this part. Me. You don't have to. I do.
Yeah, I don't have boas. No, I can tell when I feed a king snake a ball python, I can smell the difference between a ball python poop and a mouse poop.
Right, but I think that's literally just surface area,
It could
no
be.
no hair.
It's not like deal breaker or anything. I still think they're freaking cool, and the fact that I can feed them different kinds of prey items, cool. I'm down for it.
Right. So it's the same. I guess the feeding a lizard is the same as feeding a bird. The composition of the poop is different, or a snake and feeding a bird.
So, aren't there a kind of lizard that just like never stops breeding?
Yeah, there's a
Is that
lot
an
of
anole?
parthenogenic. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, parthenogenic.
They're still
Is-
not expensive enough or inexpensive enough to be a main source of food.
I know. I'm just curious if like you got a breeding trio or whatever. Or like the parthenogenesis, so you don't even need that. Like we just got like are anoles all female because they breed
No.
through parthenogenesis? Which one is it that
Like
does that?
morning geckos do that.
Morning. Thank you. Yes, that's what I was looking for. Are those appropriate feeder?
No. They don't breed fast enough. So like they'll lay 2 eggs every couple months or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But then you've spent more money on fruit flies and you accidentally lost 3 of the babies because they're the size of like a little mouse fart. And
Okay.
you need an animal that grows fast and is born big and then gets to the right size quickly so you don't have to put a lot of like labor and cost into it. So that's why like if you're like I want to feed lizard too, I would go get like the iguana reptilinx. So it's like a whole iguana that's been ground up into like a casing. So if your snake will eat that, because it's an iguana and it could be farmed, on a commercial scale, the cost per gram is quite low, and then it's pureed into like a small size to give to your whatever animal you have.
Okay.
That's how I would probably do that. The way
Rather
feeder,
than having like a breeder pair, that's not worth it. Here's what you're saying.
no, the way it's worth it is if you live in Florida and they live outside, and you just like pluck them off a tree because they're invasive anyway.
Come off your door.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in that case, like, you're doing a service because they're invasive. So just bring them inside, freeze them for a while so they kills
So they're
parasites.
not harmful.
And
Yeah.
then go for it. And that's sort of like another con with chickens is they're big enough. If they go outside, they could be colonized by roundworms, which could also, if they're not frozen, then colonize your snakes. But this is also true of rodents. Like a lot of rodents in commercial rodent facilities are infected with roundworms, pinworms, stuff like that, tapeworms. So a chicken can also experience these problems, but these problems are eliminated by freezing. So snakes can get chlamydia, causes usually an infection somewhere in their gastrointestinal tract. It depends on the kind. There's lots of kinds. There's lots of kinds of snakes. So this is like a gross generalization. So snakes can give each other a kind of chlamydia that will make them die if you don't notice it before you give them antibiotics. Yeah. So it's
Dude, bro, it's hitting the brothel.
the hardest of brothels. So whole colonies of emerald tree boas have just died from a mysterious illness that starts with a couple of regurgitations and then they die. It's actually like a kind of chlamydia that's transferred and it's actually colonized their digestive tract. Like not their face or their cloaca or like it's not an external infection. It's an internal one. But obviously chlamydia is treatable with antibiotics. So if you knew that's what was happening, you can prevent death in this case or infection in your colony. And you can also test for some of the kinds of chlamydia, but it's not a super common one people test for. But certain people will avoid feeding birds to emerald tree boas and other arboreals because one of the bird varieties of chlamydia can spread to snakes and cause illness and death. I don't know why they believe that like a long-term freezing would not eliminate most of that risk, but maybe it doesn't all the time. But I don't know how many birds that are commercially available are always infected with chlamydia, or if the ones that are like being fed like wild-caught birds to snakes. All of this is like an additional problem, but none of it happens to me here with captive bred birds and captive bred snakes. All of this is also true for rodents. There probably is some sort of thing that can get in rodents that can jump to snakes. and we just don't know what it is yet. So it's all about collection management and watching stuff. And in the case of chlamydia,
Don't go to the brothel.
don't go to the brothel, and don't let your snakes go to the brothel. And then treat it before they start to die. Like if you have a regurg in someone, sometimes it doesn't mean anything, but sometimes it does mean something. And so it's worth necropsying if you can afford to, because it could be something treatable like chlamydia that could be spreading and killing, not viral this time. And you're like, oh, okay, I figured it out. So I would still recommend birds, even though there are some negatives. So Jana, do you want to feed birds to your snakes? You already are.
I am definitely going to feed them to my king snakes, and I might try a few to ball pythons.
All right. Happy
Do
Thanksgiving.
you want to? Apparently you are.
Yeah, I'm all in on birds. If I could feed almost exclusively birds, I would. They're so much easier to boas anyway.
Hot take. Why are we feeding more birds to our snakes?
I don't know. It's probably
It could be
mostly the poop
Thanksgiving.
part.
In your rack every week.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
It
Thank
is
you,
sweet.
snakes. Happy
Ooh, I
Thanksgiving.
forgot something. Can I
All
add
right,
something
yeah.
into it? It goes way back over with the Billy thing. So do you want to end it and then I can talk and maybe
Nope,
you can
just
throw
go
it?
now.
Nope, just go. All right. So, hot take. Billy says he only feeds his snakes every 2 weeks.
Hot take. He didn't say that like 3 months ago. Hot take. He's changed his tune.
That's what I thought. I wanted to go back and to investigate, but I haven't had the time.
So
because I
Warren
feel
Booth
like
came
that's
on his like private Q&A, and Warren Booth is like a pro minimal feeder guy.
Yeah, he feeds his like every 3 months if he can help it.
But this is like small cold weather boas. So Billy, if he just recently started feeding everything every 14 days, then that's new news. But according to how he said he fed, like literally 2 or 3 months ago, he fed.
Years.
No, yeah, but he feeds babies every week. So is he lying or is he exaggerating? Or is he just talking about his adult females? He has been feeding his adult females every other week for years.
We're just talking about, adult females.
Right, but in the thing, he's like, I've fed everything for years.
He did make it sound like
Yeah,
he only
but
feeds
he
every 2
didn't, because he hasn't said that for years. He's definitely
Correct. That it seemed like new news. I know that. Hi, buddy. We have a little guest star. Our first guest star.
Okay, go.
I know that I listened to a podcast that had like Royal Canadian. I don't know who it was that said Canada had like a rodent crisis.
It was Billy.
It wasn't Billy. It was a podcast from somebody else.
Okay, but Billy has said like 2 years ago he had a rodent crisis, and that's
Correct.
when he started to feed mediums every other week to his adult females.
Correct.
Okay.
So that lines up for me. But him saying I've only been feeding everything every 2 weeks for years did not line up to me.
He's 100% shown himself feeding young animals every week, many times. So I don't know what he was talking about. I'm assuming he thought...
I think he's talking about adult females.
Right, but he didn't make it sound like that. He made it sound like he was being like Warren Booth this whole time, feeding very minimally. And then he was also shitting on people who had 1-year-olds that were bigger than 1,000 grams.
It just felt like a very drastic shift from what he's been saying.
That's because it was. It didn't just feel like that. I was like, fuck this dude.
It was that.
He's changed his tune because he was like, he heard Warren Booth telling him how bad it was. And he's like, all right, we're just going to pretend I've been feeding everybody every 2 weeks. I mean,
because there's
he
no way
showed you the like...
last 4 podcasts have been ranting and screaming about feed your babies every week.
Yeah.
You cheap ass skate, like...
Right.
If you don't feed your babies every week, I'm going to come down there and beat the shit out of you. And I love Billy. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Billy fan. Adore him. But I was very confused because I felt like he was singing a different tune this week.
He absolutely was. I also noticed that too. I just was like very negative about it. I didn't even want to bring it up because
it seemed like even the guys on his team were like, "What? What are you saying?
We've only feed every 2 weeks."
What? wait. 1,500 grams is bad?
It was very strange.
It was very, very strange and confusing to me.
There obviously is a physiological effect to feeding a snake every week. And the paper that Warren Booth is mentioning does list the physiological effects of ramping up for digestion. But I'm not quite sure I agree with every species every time that having like a heightened state of digestion equals instant mortality. There are clearly species that really suffer if they're fed too much, even if they act like they want it. Their name is boa constrictor. They're calling right now. Ring, ring, ring. Here they are calling.
Hello. Please don't feed me every week. I'm a boa.
Because they look like shit, and you can tell. And they die. And probably the carpets too. They also just get really fat, and their bodies get weird shaped, and they die at 10 or something. But there's something in the secret sauce of a ball python where they're supposed to like feed really heavy, even as babies, like when the rainy season happens, and then stop. Feed really heavy and then stop. So the ball pythons self-stop when
they self-regulate.
Yes.
On their own.
Yes. So like
they don't eat. Like there are a few that will eat anytime, anything, any place, even you. But those are not the normals. Like most ball pythons will not let you overfeed them. And if they're on like a feeding binge and they're like, feed me, feed me, feed me, once they hit like the 1,000-gram wall or whatever, then they're just like, I'm good for 6 months.
Right.
They do that on their own.
So if you fed them more conservatively, they would never hit a 1,000-gram wall because they would never be like full.
Right.
Right. So you can do it both ways. You can feed a ball python every 2 weeks and breed it at 3 years old or 4 years old. And that would be totally fine too. It'll probably never hit a 1,000-gram wall, but it also won't maybe breed till 4 or 5 or whatever. And that's fine. And maybe that snake will live to 60 instead of 45 or something. But there's just some sort of juju in how a ball python is made that makes them better equipped to tolerate a lot of food all at once. It just is the fact of life. And the thing
do you feed weekly or do you feed every 2 weeks? Ball pythons.
On average, weekly. You know, babies get fed weekly-ish, sometimes 5 or 8 days, depending on like scheduling or whatever.
Right, 5 to 8 days. That's what I do.
And then
depending on what day it works.
Growing animals can still get fed weekly because they just don't seem to get fat. They just seem to grow. And then older animals, adult males might be 2 to 3 weeks because if they're not doing anything. Breeding males get fed every week. Building females might get fed twice a week. Fuck it. You know, if it's good, they're feeling like they want to build follicles. And I will take it light on them right after they lay. Like I don't feed them heavy right after they lay because then the wild they would be like not eating at all still. So I might feed them every week something small. And then once they like get off the eggs that aren't there anymore and they look like they're going to want to grow follicles, I'll push them harder then. When someone feeds a very large item every other week, the only reason I would do that is because that's cheaper.
That was my thought. It's like, yeah, that would be freaking cheaper.
Right.
Like,
you
way
could
cheaper
feed
for
like
me.
a large,
If I could
medium,
cut down,
every other week. That'd be cheaper than 2 smalls. So like, if you're doing it for that reason, then that's fine to me.
Right.
But I sell to Carter and Evan. I don't know if they listen, and they feed sometimes every other week. I don't know what Evan's doing, but I know Carter did not have quite as good of a year last year. Like of his females that go, they will want to take a year off between cycles if they're fed
if you're feeding
half as
weeks.
much and the size doesn't increase proportionally.
Okay.
So if it's one of those,
it felt like such a shift for him, and
it was such a shift.
I had a lot of questions.
I had a whiplash.
For him. Yes, that's how I felt too. I was like, what? And then also I was like, I think there's a lot of people that could have walked away from that thinking I could save half money and only feed my ball pythons every 2 weeks.
You can feed them every 2 weeks, but you need to increase the size. Otherwise, you'll have half the production.
But I don't think people took that away from how he was presenting
because
it.
he did, yeah. Because it came out of nowhere, because he just did that thing with Warren Booth.
Yeah, it was totally off the cuff, and I don't think he articulated himself how he wanted to.
Right. And then the people that do like feed larges for a small amount of time and then don't feed them at all for like 3 months, 6 months of the year, that's the other way to do it. That would also accomplish the same thing. You need X number of calories to make a clutch per year. If you want to save money by doing bigger sizes, and your females will take them, some, even if they're real big, they're scared of like big food items.
For sure. Yeah.
You can't do anything about that.
3,500 grams, and she will only take a small.
Right. So like those animals have to be fed every week.
She keeps getting, like, she's gaining and she's building, but she won't take two. She'll just take a small.
Right.
But she's 3,500 freaking grams. I'm like, okay, cool.
So I can imagine someone like,
I got you,
selling all those females, only having the females they know will take either multiple mediums or one large, then feeding them exclusively every other week for 5 months of the year. Let them be off food when they're working on eggs and when they are incubating nothing, because you're going to take it away for like disease prevention. And that would be a totally acceptable plan, and it might actually be more in line with their biology. The reason why people feed every week is because there's lots of ball pythons that don't want big food items. I have a bunch of females that will only eat mediums if it's frozen thawed, because it's too scary alive or something.
Oh, for sure. So most of mine that will take a medium, even a big medium, will not take down a small medium rat.
Right.
That's alive.
It's just too big.
They're just like, whoa, get out of my tub.
Right. But if I lay or like tong feed them, they're like, oh, it's the right shape, I guess. And they can definitely eat it. They just are scared of anything bigger.
Correct.
So you could definitely reformulate your design of your feeding plan different ways, and I think that would be fine. But the people that are like, if I only feed a small every 2 or 3 weeks and I can get the exact same production, no, you can't. Sorry.
Because I've always been like pro feed, like feed your freaking snakes. And so it never made sense to me that people who feed really cheaply, that do it for the money, that they feed half the amount of what I feed because it's cheaper. That's not ever going to be the person that I want to be or the business practice that I want to have. And I thought that's how Billy felt about it. And then he did this like 180 real quick. And so it's like, does he feed his females every 2 weeks? And is he still getting great production? Like, am I wrong?
I knew he was feeding his adult females every 2 weeks, because he's talked about that a lot. But he has never said that he fed his babies every 2 weeks.
Ever. I don't think he meant his babies, even though he said all of them. I think he specifically meant breeder females. But he also was talking about how he doesn't feed a lot of mediums. And that's when the guys were like, what? Like, they were even confused as to what he was saying. And so
like, maybe he just changed his mind.
Are you feeding a medium every 2 weeks, or are you feeding a small every 2 weeks? Like, and your production's fine? Like, I want to know that, because he does have good production.
Does he?
And my last year, maybe I don't. He's never released those
He's never
numbers.
been like, 90% of my females go every year.
The reason that I'm questioning myself and my methods is that I had a terrible year.
They were all new to you, though. You have to.
The whole thing was new. I was inexperienced. I had moved in all these snakes, so they just moved. I get it. I get all the factors. Plus, I had a crappy male that went to a bunch of them. But no matter how you slice it, I had a crappy year, and so I have my ears open for information, if that makes sense. And so, if I am overfeeding, that's something I want to be aware of. I err on the side of overfeeding rather than underfeeding. But like with ball pythons, I feel like they let me know when they've had too much. But does that make sense? Like if he's got this magic formula of every 2 weeks, and he's still getting most of his girls.
Booth. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You should listen to that guy who lives in Idaho who feeds just larges like 6 months of the year, and that's it.
He has
a podcast. Vin Russo does the same thing, but in Florida. But the guy in Idaho is a very specific.
He doesn't feed his snakes from like, no matter if they've laid or not. Nobody gets fed for like 3 months or something crazy.
Who, Vin?
I don't know who it is.
The other guy.
I think it's the other guy. I don't know.
I think it's partially because he lives in Idaho and he has like supply issues. But he The other guy, his females go every year, and he's fine with that.
And he feeds them larges? I don't even think mine would. That's not true. Okay. Probably 10 of the 45 that I'm breeding this year, they don't care. They'll eat it. Like, it doesn't matter the size. I'm
Maybe
not sure
it's
how many
just like he
weeks
selected
in a row.
his stock to be big females, and he only keeps females that get big and will eat a large. And so now there's like a
maybe he's
self-selection bias.
He's had like a selection of unknowingly like Volta-ish.
Yeah, or just yeah, exactly.
Bigger, like.
So if I like went through my colony right now and only picked the 5 females that were like monsters who also ate big meals and would eat like 3 larges, I could probably create a colony.
Because their daughters would probably be that way too.
And they, as their babies were monsters, flying out of the tub for frozen thaw, taking it from other snakes. Like, you're like, is this a boa? Did my ball python get replaced?
I've got a few that will slam it because I have clear tubs right now for hatchlings that will slam into the other hatchlings tub.
Right. Or babies that you are hunting 3 days after they were fed. You're like,
correct.
You're a little monster. I could probably like give you a food item every 2 days and you'd probably take it every time. Because
I have a few that are like that.
So yeah.
You open it up to change their water or to clean them and they're like trying to eat your hand like a king snake.
So those ones, if you bred a Kiki male you don't have yet to that, you could be like, all right, I'm going to base my collection, irrespective of mom's genes, on just being an absolute unit at all times who's good at living and eating and whatever. And the adult female size is very large, so she lays 12 eggs. Like that lesser who's slugged out with 11. She's gigantic, and she had 14 eggs the year before.
That weren't slugs?
No, they were slugs too.
Dang it.
The other one that you can select for is how quickly they become sexually mature, no matter how big they are. So you could breed a line of males that have sperm plugs and reliably breed at 600 grams instead of waiting or whatever until they're 18 months and 800 grams. The sons of my black pastel posset ghosts were sexually mature sooner, same age, than other females' sons.
Yeah, I know you watch that really closely, and I've been trying to pay better attention to it. But if they're sexually mature, like I have one that I can't get to breed anything, even though he's sexually mature and producing plugs.
Right, so you need
just hides in the corner.
He needs to be confident and physically mature. So you'd have to be like testing, like let's say you had males that were worth testing. Like you made a combo Kiki double het male, and you had double het females ready. So you could start testing the double het male progeny from different moms. And that's the one you could like double down on keeping all of their sisters the next year or whatever.
Okay.
Because you would know their older brother was a real stud muffin at 6 months old. And so their future actual Kiki combo sons will be stud muffins at 6 years old. Because their uncle was a real beefcake.
A real go-getter.
When I fed the first year feeding female ball pythons, I fed them heavier with more mediums than I did this year. I had more females go the first year. Weekly feeding mediums.
So you're saying that feeding heavier, they more went?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying I should keep doing what I'm doing and see how this year pans out before I make changes?
Yeah, I wouldn't change mid-year because you need to do 2 years of the same plan. Moral of the story is there are many ways to do things. Probably feeding ball pythons less is okay or good, but you have to keep in mind that calories in is production out. So if you want to have a cheaper management strategy but have less clutches, like females clutch every other year, you go for a bigger size and maybe have to sell smaller adult females so they fit your management strategy. Either of those are fine. Or sticking to sort of mostly once a week smaller prey items. Any of those are good for now until proven otherwise.
Okay. I think I'm gonna carry on with what I'm doing right now, but it really it confused and made me question myself. So I feel better. Thank you.
I mean, boa people and carpet people make fun of ball python people for being like dumb about how often they feed their snakes. Like, it's Friday, I haven't fed them yet. Oh no, they're gonna get mad at me and they'll never breed. Obviously, you don't think that And like,
Right.
if you skip a female 1 week and she's building, she's not just going to stop building because you skipped her. Most people figure that out, that it's not like you have to feed every Friday or they wither away and die. They can keep building if you wanted to skip a couple weeks and do big sizes for certain females. But it's a matter of like how you manage your collection and what your workflow is and what your rodent production is like and how many clutches you get given that amount of caloric input. Balls, they seem to tolerate whatever the fuck you do. So the moral of the story is do what you need to do. That's all.
That's all.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving.
We did it. Happy Thanksgiving.
Are you thankful for anything?
Ooh, being thankful is rough. I am very thankful for my miniature building. It's very exciting.
So beautiful.
It is so beautiful. I cannot wait to get it insulated and built out and get inside of it. That sounded really dirty.
That's what she said and he said at the same time.
Whoa, dang.
Jana, hot take. Jana's going to christen her building this weekend.
Anyway, it's amazing.
All right.
And I love it.
Good
and
job.
I'm happy. And you guys have a great holiday. And we'll talk to you next week.
I'm thankful for the end of the podcast. Bye.
Bye.